It's a 16 bluff in the door. It's a 16.
What a crowd. What a crowd. Here we go. How's everybody doing tonight?
I'm good. I almost overslept, but I didn't, so I'm here.
Yeah, I hope not. Hopefully you're oversleeping. Now that's a good excuse for Nerd Bacon. But for NerdCap, I don't know if I buy that one.
Well, I had 2.5 hours of sleep the day before, and then I had to go help my dad and do a few other things. And then I was like, okay, I'm going to take a nap. And that was at like 5. And I woke up and I was like, I remember I was like, barely, it's like, oh, I've only been asleep for like an hour, but let me check the time. And it was 9. And I was like, oh, I need to get up.
Yeah,
Because if I close my eyes again, I'm going to wake up to the light of day.
Yeah, that'll do it. So I made that intro. For us. Decided to put a little dancing in there today. Cause,
yeah, I liked that iPod commercial in the middle there. Like...
Yeah, a little iPod commercial. Yeah, a little beef footage there for you. You know, because I do like dancing.
I feel like it's a suggestion to all us nerds to get up and hey, get up and move, go outside,
move a little bit like that. That bird dances better than I do.
I love that. Yeah. I also love we're talking to like a very snarky looking raptor, like raptor with attitude.
What?
Yeah.
I think it's the eyes. I think it's just like it's got smug eyes.
Yeah, it's like anybody that rolls in, they're gonna be like, and they're talking to a raptor, and they're just acting like it's normal.
You were talking to the raptor.
To the raptor. If I could get by with I should have done it a long time ago. I should have figured out how to do one of those face things that they do. But I've never been. I was never really good with those things. Whatever.
I mean, this is a very simple one that everybody is always astounded by, and I'm like, this is a very simple app. You could go get it yourself, and I always tell people where to get it.
Is that one with the VC or the?
No, this is just Face Rig. It was it was a crowdfunded thing, and then they put it in, and you can. The whole reason is that if you're an actual if you have Blender, and you're good at that kind of thing, you can make your own.
Yeah. The thing is, you can't use it on Mac. So those of us that are pretentious.
Yeah, that's true. I didn't play with it until I.
Yeah, those of us who are pretentious and use the Macintosh.
You can't do a virtual preset.
I don't want to mess with all that. That's too much. I just want to go on and stream. I want to, take my break from working. And well, that rat just took a journey.
Yeah, they've been hanging out in my hoodie. I'm sorry for the distraction. I'm trying to multitask.
No, it's okay. It's all right. So,
you have pet rats? I didn't even see it.
Yeah, there's 2 of them, and they're playing in the hoodie because they're outside the cage time. It's difficult because there's cats. So
speaking of rats, so first I want to welcome our chat. We have a few of you that are. We've definitely got more watching than we have commenting. Feel free to join us on the comments tonight. This is an interactive show. If you have questions for any of us, we'll make sure to pop that out. Tonight we're going to be talking about when our art is more than just a comic, when it honors someone or something, and that it's a kind of a heartfelt thing. We'll be talking about that, primarily focusing on Buddy's comic Sins of the Fae that he has been working on, and we'll get a little bit into kind of some of his struggles and successes along the way with that. And we will also talk about other things that come to mind as they come to mind, because that's it's a perfect opportunity for ADHD people to get together and hang out before we turn in on a Tuesday night, because tomorrow is hump day, guys. It's hump day. Yeah. So please feel free to comment. You know what? So I had that segue and I totally missed it earlier because I had to do the whole housekeeping crap. But speaking of rats, so I had the craziest thing happen this week. Okay, it's been a rough weekend. So we came home Sunday from church. I had spoke with someone on Saturday. They wanted to have a phone call. Now, many of you know I have Luke Stone Studios. Luke Stone Studios, actually, I do art, lettering, coloring, project management, photography. I do story edits. We bring Piper on to do story edits for people. Get her part. She's part of the network, and so we try to kind of be holistic in the kind of creative realm, especially when it comes to comic books. And so I had somebody asking for advice, and against what I normally do is I've got clients that are paying me to give this kind of advice, but I decided, okay, I will help you out with this. Send me your script. I will look it over, and I'll make notes. I said, but you have to know, I'm gonna make big cuts and I'm gonna make deep cuts. It's not to hurt your feelings. I simply just want to make you better, because I don't put my name on anything that I'm not proud of, right? And so that was Saturday. I go to, Saturday we had some stuff come up. I wasn't able to look at anything Saturday night. Sunday morning, y'all know I'm a pastor. I had church on Sunday morning. We left church. Next Sunday is our last Sunday, so people are hanging around a little bit more after church to kind of get some of those last minute conversations in. There's little bits of time to fellowship and hang out. And so, no, it's good. We did the whole talk for an hour or two and then went to lunch. When we came home, we noticed that the cat was acting weird, my son's cat, who he absolutely loves. And it was just, he was acting kind of weird. So we kept an eye on him, but we wound up having to take him to a pet emergency room. And it turns out he wasn't going to make it. And so my son had to make the choice to put him down. And he wound up holding his beloved cat while the doctor euthanized him. And it was rough. It was rough on him, rough on the whole family. We love this cat. And we didn't get home till midnight that night. And so I was like, all right. The next day, I get a message. I'm like, look, it's not a good day. I told you yesterday we had some trouble going. The cat didn't make it. I said, today I just got to focus on family. We had some meetings going on for a dissolution for the church. And I'm like, I just got to focus on that, right? Well, I wake up this morning and I get a message this guy's just he's gone kind of ballistic a little bit. And so I just make some comments. I'm like, look, if somebody's is helping you out, even if you're paying them, if you're paying somebody, set a due by date. I said, most adults don't need somebody to hold their hand through projects. They can get to it, right? They know what they're doing. But if somebody's helping you out, and they've got some stuff going on in their life, you've got to just hold your horses a little bit and pull back the reins and chill out. And so then I got in the car and I head to South Carolina to pick up my daughter because she's been gone for a month. We're picking her up. And so while I'm in the car, I actually get to drive. So they grounded me for a while, but now I'm in the car on my way, right? And so I'm driving.
Lucky you! You get to deal with traffic and people angry at you for doing anything absolutely wrong at all on the road.
And I didn't even care, dude. I haven't driven for a year. Okay, so on the highway.
That's what I'm saying. It was to you, it's like yes.
Everybody else I can't believe I gotta drive 2 states over today. No, I was loving it, man. I was having a good time. So I'm driving, so I'm not getting any of my messages. Well, about 4 o'clock, we switched places, and I've got my phone now, and I'm like, and I noticed that some weird stuff happened on Twitter, but I have this thing where I don't get a lot of my messages on Twitter right away because I don't check it all the time. So I make sure that I have email notifications sent to my mailbox, so I don't miss any contacts. Right? I'd had 7 contacts from this individual, and they started out kind of cordial, and because I didn't respond, they spiraled out of control, and this person had a complete breakdown and got flat out abusive, and
So he treated you like an ex-girlfriend.
yeah, like, I'm like, dude, and it was like crazy, and then I get blocked or something, and so it was just nuts. I mean, it was crazy, but yeah, 7. So yeah, let's
You better watch
So we
out for
gotta-
the stinky
we gotta
fish
do
in your
what
car tomorrow. I mean,
yeah, we got to go. We got Net Nefarious is first. Aaron is second. Hail, you guys! It's great to have you here. Nice to see the boys together again. Yes, buddy, you work too hard. Yeah, he does. And Telepathic Bunny is here, hardest working lizard in show business. Telepathic Bunny is one of our channel members. You're watching today on YouTube. You can too become a channel member, and it helps us create great content just for you, and for you and anybody else that subscribes. But as a member, more for you than anyone. I'm singling you out. I'm late and it's punchy. I've been on the road all day. We got John A. Douglas here. Hey, buddy, it's good to have you here. And it's great to be around other indie creators. Oh, not the rats. Yes, the rats. We've also got Marsupial Gamer here. It's Photography Raptor. I guess. Yeah, maybe it is. We got Johnny freaking Cage in the house. Bro, don't look now. There's a dinosaur on your screen. I know, right? It's right there. Whitechapel is here. Hello, everyone. Hello, Whitechapel. It's great to have you today. Belmont Press. Great Belmont Press is here. Justin Belmont. And yes, Belmont 7-7. Dum, dum, dum. Yes. And Aaron says it was an absolute win. You dropped some extra baggage. But yeah, so anyway, I got blocked, and then so that was crazy. So I think, have you guys ever had, like, there's this guy at our church that just says no good deed goes unpunished.
yeah.
Have you guys ever tried to help somebody and they just like go nuts on you like this?
Oh yeah.
Unfortunately, it happens.
This would be where you actually elaborate on that, so I'm not talking by myself. I'm teasing it. Come on.
Did you want to say something, Piper?
Oh, you okay? Me?
Yeah, come on, Piper.
Well, I can think of one. I mean, there's a few comics related. I just don't want to start drama by mentioning them.
No, drama fights. So here's the thing. They can drama fight if they want, but we're not going to listen.
True. But there's one that's a lot easier to, I think, relate to almost. That when I was in college, there was this guy and his wife, and they were talking about how, like, being between jobs, not knowing how to make rent, not knowing what they were going to eat. Thanksgiving was coming up. At least, Thanksgiving was in my mind that, well, it's coming up. And they were talking about it a lot. And at one point, I was grocery shopping for me, and I realized that, actually, I told them, like, if you meet me can you come to this store? I'm going grocery shopping. Let's put some groceries in the cart for you guys. And it was so bad because I'm sitting there trying to put stuff in the cart that's going to last them. And also try to buy them a Thanksgiving dinner, essentially, like putting it together.
Just trying to be a good human being, basically.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I'm like, what do you guys, like to eat that's going to last, that we can stock up on? Here's some canned stuff here. We'll get to you fresh. I mean, there's food pantries, but if I'm taking you to the store, it's for stuff you can't get there. So it was more meats and stuff and some more fresh stuff, but stuff that was going to last. And they bitched the entire time about all the food I suggested. they bitched. They wanted junk food, name brand junk food, and about as much food. And they were talking about, oh, well, I can eat this much in a day. So, and I'm like, well, maybe you shouldn't be doing that. Like,
I mean, you
Like,
could
I
jump
can't-
off the end of a bridge into a deep ocean too, but that's probably not the best
Yeah.
idea.
it was to the point where but I was like, if you're hurting on food, maybe your portions shouldn't be 5 times. You shouldn't be eating a week's
Or
worth of
maybe
food
you
in one
should be
day.
thankful for someone helping you out.
Yeah,
You know, I
they
mean, yeah, you didn't have to do that. That's crazy.
they complained the whole time. They were snotty about it, this and that, and it actually put me off like reaching out to help people for a while. Because the experience was just so, it's like I wasn't looking for like, yay, thank you, you're a lifesaver, or anything like that. But it was just so nasty. It rubbed me the wrong way so bad. It was like the worst case of like choosy beggars or whatever
Well,
that I
yeah,
had ever freaking experienced.
you know, I totally get where you're coming from because I've worked in the industry now for more than 20 years. And in that time, I think we got a fan problem with you. You were fine for a second there, Piper, and then your fan just got real loud all of a sudden. So, but you know, I've been doing ministry for more than 20 years, and sometimes people will create these experiences where you just get kind of desensitized to wanting to help people, you know, and it hurts like to get yourself to that point because you want to be super generous and you want to kind of be a good person, leave the wood pile higher than you found it, and they keep you from wanting to do that. So especially like what I'm trying to do in this indie comics realm is to be kind of a load-bearing pillar for the community and for the cause. We get, it's kind of what Bancroft talks about, being a tent pole, or something like that. But yeah, I want to be a load-bearing pillar for it. What happens is when you encounter something like this, it makes you more reluctant to help other people that maybe are trying to level up, because you're like, I don't want another one of those experiences, and so it turns you off from helping anybody. And then what it does, it winds up hurting the whole community rather than lift everybody up. It hurts everybody. And Rich is saying that over 20 years in IT, he fully understands trying to help folks, and they freak out. I can understand that. Justin Dutton is making fun of my hat and my beard. And all I've got to tell you is you just don't even know.
I am the one who knocks.
She got up on my pork pie, bringing up the complaint department. And where are you at? You're supposed to be on the stream, dude.
I was wondering. I was like, I saw his name, and I'm like,
Don't make me come and get you.
Maybe he forgot. I don't know.
Don't make him a
No,
liar twice today.
He had to restart his computer. Well, here's the thing. Justin, because he's not here to defend himself, is going to I'm just going to let him have it. He decides to update the computer right before the stream. And so, like most good streamers do, they decide to do all updates right before they're supposed to go live. So that's I am messing with him, by the way. It would be nice to have the band back together, but someone can't make it to practice. It got really quiet right there. Beggars cannot be choosers. That's true. But, I do have this kind of point. So I've worked with a lot of people in kind of low income areas. There's also this other thing where it's like, well, if I'm going to help you, you're just going to take whatever help I give you. People should still want a choice, right? If you're giving me a t-shirt and that t-shirt, let's say, has a picture of Joe Biden on it, I should be like, no, I don't want that t-shirt. And okay, I won't leave anybody out. Let's say it says "Let's Go Brandon" on it, and you don't want the shirt that says "Let's Go Brandon" on it, right? So you shouldn't be expected, just because you're in a place of need, to take whatever someone gives you just because they're giving it to you. You should still have a choice. It's called dignity. We're not trying to strip people of their dignity, but so In this situation, you're asking for help that literally someone else is paying me for. And it's unfair to the person who's paying me for it that I'm about to give it to you for free. And then you crap on me because my life came up, And totally uncalled for. Advice for anyone out there, if you're working with someone, set your dates, like set due by dates, and stay off of their back. Like, hey, if you could do this by this time, or how long do you think it'll take you to get to this? And like I told him, hey, it's going to take me a couple of days. I'll start putting in comments. Not all the comments are going to come all at once. They're going to come in phases. I'm going to start going a little bit at a time because it's going to take, normally, and Piper, this situation because it's the same thing you do to my scripts. By the time, like, you can make the first comment, I'm going to start working on that. And I may not be ready for the next comment for a day or two. So it's okay if it takes a little while before it gets there, because I'm going to have to sift through all this stuff and try to figure out how to make it work, because, if you suck.
I like
really
doing them in chunks too, so that I keep coming back with fresh eyes and refreshed. So, editing probably sounds easy, but I like spreading it out. So make sure you have like that time if you're working with an editor. Make sure you have that time so that they can take breaks from looking at it.
Yeah.
They're gonna catch more stuff that way.
Yeah, absolutely. And I know we're making fun of it, but he's like, he's on his phone. His laptop is taking so long. And Aaron Jordan's like, dude, I totally understand. My computer likes to take its time, and that happens. I like to take my time too, sometimes. Rich says his number one rule one for helping folks out is, if I'm giving you for free what I get paid very well for in my day job, you will give me some latitude. That is very fair. That's very, very fair. Yeah.
When you're not a client, you're a favor. You need to remember you're not a client. You're a favor.
I learned because I was trained a long time ago as an actual psychiatric professional, and one of the things that I learned when I would go through is like, okay, I can't do this whole process for somebody. So if I'm going to help somebody, I help them in the same way that I manage them, that I teach them, and that I write. I give you enough structure for you to lift yourself up. I will give you direction. I'll give you the steps. You got to step.
Right,
you've got to make the move.
Yeah,
and if you're not willing to do that, I'm not willing to pick you up and carry you, because that's not going to teach you anything. Most of the time when people get carried, they learn the wrong lesson.
Mm-hmm.
And I was talking to Nefarious about this about last week. I said, humanity as a whole too often learns the wrong lesson, and then you compound the wrong lesson because then you make a decision on the wrong lesson. So you're making a decision on something that was wrong. So you make another decision and it's wrong because the other one was wrong. And then they just go and go and go and go, and eventually, like, you're sitting on a scaffolding that has no structure to it, and then they wonder why they end up on their butt, and it's like, well, you never built anything.
Yeah. I love my friend Brian K. Morris recounts a story where someone, so Brian he's primarily a prose author, but he does comics and stuff like that too. But he built a little network called the Rising Tide Network, and he has had morning shows that he was doing, and he has quite a decent mailing list that he's put together, and fairly successful for an independent author. And someone asked, hey, how can I get all of that stuff that you got without putting in the work? And the audacity of someone to actually ask that question, he was dumbfounded by it. But people, they want that. What they want is, they look at like, hey, I want whatever you've got. I see kind of where you're at. I see the platform you've got. I see the subscribers you have on YouTube, or this or that, and they don't want to put in the work to get there, and they don't want to hire the people to help get them there. I posted on Twitter just the other day that I'm not good with the whole social media SEO marketing crap. I don't know a lot about that yet. I'm still learning. And the amount of time it would take for me to learn that and become an expert would take me away from doing the other stuff that I do know really well and that I need to be doing. And so I hired somebody to teach me what I needed to know to grow my channel. Like, tell me what I need to do and help me promote it so I can grow my channel. And they did that. Now, I'm sitting here today where I'm at because their expertise got me there, and I learned. I did everything they asked me to do, and every bit of advice they said, I followed because they're the expert and I'm not. They have built channels, I have not. So I had to take their advice for it. I take their word for it, and I did it, and I'm here. Now, I could have gotten here on my own, but it would take me a long time to get there by myself. And I think that's the same thing with comic books, right? Like, yeah, you can stumble your way through the dark, and you can stub your toe and bump your nose, and eventually find the door, or eventually find the light switch. But if you're like, hey, somebody with a flashlight, can you help me? Or, if you ask for help, number one, take it. Like, I can't stand it when people ask for help and then don't take the advice, so take the advice. Number two, understand the value of the advice you're asking for. And by all means, if you're asking for someone to edit your book that does not produce a good book on their own, do not ask them to edit your book. Don't expect to hire somebody who's never drawn a comic book to draw you a great comic book. It's not going to happen. It's just not going to happen. Just going to say that, and then I'm going to leave this one here. This stream is already one of the greatest, on par with Mr. Rogers. Well, thank you. glad you could be our neighbor.
I loved Mr. Rogers.
Won't you be my neighbor?
And my neighbor.
I'll
Build
bring
with
some puppets next time.
All right, puppets. Yeah, you heard it next week. Next week on NerdCap, we're gonna have some puppets. I think
You
puppets
heard
are
it
great.
right here, folks. We're gonna have
Do it. That's right. Do it, Piper.
That's a little loud.
Puppets. That was.
You guys got
that
a lot
was-
of energy.
Yeah,
was
man,
really-
he yelled that right in my ear holes.
I'm telling you what, that's like Nerd Bacon energy, not Nightcap energy. So Nerd Bacon, we're a little more excited. Nightcap, we're all getting ready to go to bed. We're gonna get off of here. We're gonna go dream about being rock stars. So that's what we're doing. But build with someone, not for someone else. Nothing worth it is ever free, and that's absolutely true. Telepathic Bunny Comics, if he does that, it might take longer. Best to just wait it out. I don't know what he's talking about. Did I miss something? Of course I did.
I think he's still talking about the computer. The
Oh, turn it
laptop
off and back
issue.
on again.
Turning off, yeah.
Yeah.
Nobody, nobody knows. Telepathic Bunny is heading to work. And let me see what else we got. We got the Woke Breaker here. Hail chat. Hail Woke Breaker. It's great to have you. And we're gonna have to have you on the show sometime. Talk about your project as well. Piper, why aren't you using your VTuber avatar? That is having all the fun.
I mean,
Do you have a VTuber avatar?
Yeah, y'all want to see?
Yeah,
it?
she's like a wolf girl or something.
Yes, let's see it. Let's see what you got.
All right, it might take me I might have to actually leave and come back.
Oh, don't do that then. It's not worth it. It's not worth it to do all that.
It would be without Piper,
Yeah, we'll just be sitting here like in silence, being like,
Emotional damage.
that guy's loud too.
Yeah.
Dang it. All of these are so loud, especially when we're like, tonight on the NerdCap, we're gonna listen to jazz music.
Are we gonna do? We're doing ASM now.
Yes.
Oh,
ASMR.
ASMR.
Gonna lick
Okay,
the
this is
mic
pretty
or
cool.
something.
Box of shame.
Yeah, I was gonna say. So last I left her, I guess I left her in the box of shame.
I think I lived most of my life in the box of shame.
She's not
Ah.
tracking right now because it thinks that StreamYards is trying to use the camera.
Neff is saying some Piper's a fox. I mean, the Avatar's a wolf. Wolves and fox are very much different. But Ching Chong, yeah, that's bad. Anyway.
There we go.
So yeah, that was what's going on. What else is going on in the nerd world that we should be aware of right now? Anything good?
I mean, Sandman is coming out soon, and people are very happy with the transformation.
Okay, yeah. Is that all you got about the transformation? That's it?
No, I was looking at the fox. I thought she was going to say something because she took herself out of the box. So I was giving her that opportunity.
We're all like waiting on Piper. This show's
now
called Waiting on Piper.
I've got something since it's kind of related to her.
Sure. What's that?
I finally narrowed down what I want my first somewhat solo project to be.
Ooh.
And apparently it's going to be associated with the wolf girl? Or?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Her backstory as a comic book.
Nice.
Cool.
Because I separated her from me. But in order to explain some stuff, I'm still technically in the story too. So it's going to be a hell of a self-insert. But like...
Wow. So this is like, okay, I'm going to put my psychology hat on here. So you've got both your, this would be your ego and your shadow, both in the same book.
Yeah, and they're both side characters. Like, I'm a background character. I am there to explain why she has somewhere to live.
Okay.
And internet access and shit, basically, and snacks. I want the story to start before she ever existed. Because the story would actually be about the moon goddess that created her.
Mm-hmm.
Did you want to have a fart? You
The
read
moon
fart?
goddess?
Yeah.
There's a few of those around, so you can pick one.
Yeah, I know a few. I mean, they're all over the place.
Who's editing this book? I'm sure they'll want to insert. Not me. The only thing I've really done is just finally set my mind to this is the one I work on, because I've been working on a few story ideas and just not really having the confidence to go with it. But I feel like this one would be a fun one to market and be solo, because I can be a cartoon selling her own comic, and I think that concept is neat.
Okay.
Yeah. So let's talk about self-inserts for a second. Wait a second.
Okay.
Okay.
I'm a little slow.
That's what she said.
Sorry. I'm sorry. I'm so slow. It's like I'm like molasses tonight. I'll be much faster Thursday morning. I guarantee it. And
That's what she said!
There we go.
there we go. All right, we're getting there, guys. Gotta wake up. Geesh. All right. So anyway, so self-inserts. Buddy, you said something about Sandman, about a self-insert there.
Yeah,
earlier.
well, the
What was
only
that?
there was okay. So in this new day of woke, all the shows and ideas and concepts that we loved back in the 80s and 90s have been transformed and changed and washed over and whatever, right? And I found it quite ironic, and I made a point to a guy that's big Sandman fan, which is Von Klaus, of Monster MD fame and all that, right? And I said, it's funny, but it seems to be that the only main character that survived the transformation from then to now is his own self-insert.
Of course.
Dream is
I can't
completely
kill-
untouched.
I
Same
can't
hair,
kill myself. Why would I do
same
that?
body, same dress, same attire, everything, right? Acts the same. I mean, a little bit. I mean, I don't think he was ever that muscular, but otherwise, it's the same thing, right?
Yeah.
And I'm just like, so the only thing that survived is your self-insert. Everything else is up for debate.
You've killed everything else, yeah. the only self-insert I'm not. I just realized I'm the only one with my face on screen, it's kind of my avatar. It's kind of a cartoon too, really, especially with the hat on. But I mean, really, I think we're all interested in Piper's self-insert, but I'm not really interested in like the woke's self-insert. I talked with a friend today. She's like, "Oh, I saw on the news, on Fox News, that people are making comics that go against the woke agenda." And she goes, "I thought about you," and I thought, "Oh, Luke's gonna be on the news one day with his comic book." And I go, "Well, hopefully I'm on the news one day." I think if I make the money that Ribba makes, I'll be on the news one day, but probably not. And by that time, I'll probably be old news. But I said I am part of that group that is like, take that woke. We're sick of that. And here, okay, I'm just gonna say this: if you are a white person that uses the word woke, you should just slam your face into a brick wall until it falls down.
Unironically. They use it unironically.
Yeah, they're using it unironically. If you've ever said, "I am woke," I just want you to walk as far away from me as you possibly can. I mean, really, I cannot. There's no level of we cannot have a reasonable conversation if you're using that term thinking that you're somehow in the right. All right, now I'll be canceled tomorrow, but I don't care. I don't know where Hojo's at. Hojo wrote 3 rules for me. It's his first published work. It was 3 rules. Luke's 3 rules. Number 1, I don't care. Number 2, why not? And number 3, uncancelable. So those are my 3 rules.
Oh,
And
yeah,
so I live by those. And so I do what I
Especially by
want.
my own friends.
You get canceled by your own friends?
Yep.
Yikes. I'm uncancelable because I do what I want.
Not to worry. I have a permit.
This just says I can do what I want.
Yep. I have a permit, guys. I do what I want.
It's definitely a legally binding affidavit right there.
Yeah. So a lot of woke stuff in there and that kind of stuff. Now, a book that does not have a self-insert in it is Buddy's book. So you've got a book called Sins of the Fae.
Yep.
And that's why I wanted you on tonight, so we could talk about this book, because we've been a part of a group for a number of months now, I think, or weeks maybe. I'm not really sure how long
it's been a few months.
Yeah. So we've been a part of this group called the Genesis Crew that where it's people try to help each other a little bit, but it's mostly just I think it's mostly supposed to be helping each other, but there's a fair amount of just complaining about stuff, because there's plenty of stuff to complain about. And so, but we've been a part of this group, and I've gotten to know you a little bit. And one of the things that that I never knew about your story, the only thing that I knew about Buddy Lord is he had Sins of the Fae, and please don't hate me for this, but Sins of the Fae was late.
Mm-hmm.
Those are the only 2 things I knew about Buddy, right? And then I learned that Buddy is a velociraptor, which started to make sense. It's really, really hard to make a comic book when you don't have opposable thumbs.
It is difficult sometimes, I got to put put a stylus in my teeth and type very slowly. So
yeah, and so it started to make a little more sense. But honestly, all joking aside, as I did get to know you, I started to realize, I started to see more of the book and what you're doing, and then to hear the story behind it. So what I want to do is, I want to hear kind of about the emotional aspect of the book, because I think a lot of us come up with comic book concepts and ideas. Obviously Piper and I are working on a book called Rift Riders. We've had this ideas, that are kind of blended together. And, when I started working with it, I said, I'm not married to anything that I have here. It's just an idea. It's a concept. I want the book. I want it to be super successful, and I'm passionate about it. Right. But it's not an emotional thing, in the sense that it means something special. It might at some point develop in that there may be a character or two that does that, but the whole project isn't like a love letter.
I mean, Sins of the Fae didn't start out as one. Sins of the Fae started out as a middle finger.
Okay, all right.
I was in San Antonio, and I was with a different person, and she was I forget what they call them, but basically she was like a judge for sororities, and they have like a judge within their little groups, and she was that, and she's like, hey, one of my friends is...
Oh, they have a name for that.
Yeah, I know. I can't remember the name though. That's what I'm saying. But she was basically one of her friends. Her boyfriend was gone. He was deployed, and so she's like, "Hey, I'm working. Can you take my friend out to go see a Twilight film because she's sad?" And I said, "Sure." So I went to see Twilight, and I'm like, "This is the most horrible thing I've ever seen in my life. Why is this here? Why are you making me suffer like this?"
Well, you don't like sparkly vampires? Come on, man.
Well, I immediately made the assumption. I created a working story in my head. My headcanon was that these were supposed to be fairies, but our editors told her that vampires sell better. And that's actually a forward to my book. And I say, like, a few $1 billion later, I'd say she made the right decision. Good for her.
Yeah.
But apparently, Mike Oden, who a lot of people know as Elysian Fields, he did the SBQRS and Embrace.
Yeah.
And he told me, he and I talk about every day, and he said, dude, that's real, right? And I was like, no, I wrote this like 10 years ago. I had no idea that was real. But apparently, yeah, it's actually true. It was supposed to be about fairies. Yeah, that's why they sparkle.
Oh, God, it would be so much better if it was fairies.
Yeah, and that's what I thought.
No. Okay, I got to take it back. I don't think it'd be so much better. Okay, but it would be somewhat better.
Yeah,
if it were fairies. Yeah,
there's a good chance that it might have been accepted by a wider audience if.
Yeah.
Did
you say wider or whiter?
Either or, really.
Because you can't get you cannot get any whiter than the audience it currently has.
But
I meant wider. If instead of taking, vampires and making them like that, something that originated kind of as a horror, scary thing, no matter how you look at it.
Yeah.
Because it's definitely not creepy when a 250-year-old vampire sits in the corner and stares at a 15-year-old girl sleeping.
Yeah. That's
right.
Not
that's what I'm saying. Like if you change it to fairies, you have a lot more wiggle room to do all the stuff that they did, and it be accepted by more, people.
Welcoming Lugnut6 to the chat. Welcome, Lugnuts.
Hey there.
Feel free to make yourself at home. Get to know everyone in the comments and the chats. Have a good time.
I can't tell if she's saying hello to the audience or her rats.
It's the audience.
What's the difference?
They're my audience too.
The audience is her little rats too.
And
not in a bad way. Not in a bad way, guys.
Captive audience.
Or says woke white women are a pretty wide audience.
Ayo.
Damn. Waka waka.
Waka waka out of that.
Wider, was that a fat joke? Waka waka right after that. Oh my gosh. I'm pretty excited about that. Yeah.
So, but I mean, yeah. So I took it as at first it was a middle finger, but I always tell people, or I like to say that what things begin as, the reason why you start things isn't always the reason why you want to finish them. And this kind of changed in the process because I realized a few things. I went through, we talked about the book was late. One of the major reasons the book was late is because I hired an artist, and I'm not an artist, and I have no artistic ability whatsoever. So I should have not looked on my own for an artist, but I did. And most of the way through the project, and I say most of the way because it was about 35 or 36 pages out of 48, I launched the campaign, and I thought, okay, there's no way I'm not going to be able to, finish this in 6 months. And then for 7 weeks, I got nothing because and this was in the midst of the campaign. I had no new material to show because we didn't have he wasn't doing anything. So it was like, okay. And I'm not, it was like pre-COVID. He was in Mexico. There were some things going on. I'm not saying his name was Joe Sanchez, great artist, wonderful pinup guy. But the biggest thing is like Sins of the Fae is very high concept, very, it's magical realism. What if there were, magical, there was magic in reality? And the way I like to describe that is really simple: science and magic, magic and science. If you do both of those things, then you come up with magical realism. Okay. So I had this magical realism, and I'm like, all right, this is what's going to happen, but it's just strange creatures, weird looking concepts, weird ideas. And then I'm a pretty well-read, educated person. And my ideas are a bit out there sometimes. And so I would describe him things, and he would come back with a very simple version of it. And I'm like, no.
For everyone that's watching, what Buddy's trying to say is basically this.
I know more than you.
All right.
I try not to say that, but it just didn't work out. You know what I mean? He couldn't keep up with my kind of artistic vision, and I got lucky. I found an artist who was more of a concept guy, and Xevious was able to say, yeah, I can do this for you, and he actually didn't want to do sequentials at first. I had to talk him into it. And when basically he said, I can't do sequentials. He's like, sequentials is like Rob Willis. And the reason why is Xevious has a particular set of ideals. And his set of ideals are, if you're not the best at something, you shouldn't be doing it.
Yes, I agree with him, actually, to some extent with that. I think a lot of us know who Xevious is. He's a fantastic artist. If you haven't checked him out, go to @Xevious with an X on Twitter. I believe it's at
XEVIUSS.
There we go. I put it in the chat there for you, so that you can look it up. He does amazing art, and it's very painted. It's very kind of out of the box almost. There's a beauty to it, but it almost kind of an etherealness to it as well with what he does. And
I could show you some of it if you want me to share my screen.
Yeah, go ahead and share your screen. Let's pop some of it up here. Welcome, Buddy's screen. You know what I'm doing? I'm gonna move us around a little bit here, so we can get more of the screen up there. There we go. Yeah, so this is Xevious's art. I mean, as you can see, it's very, very colorful. It's not typical comic book art at all. Which, I mean, it's a very interesting choice to do a book like this. With not standard comic book style stuff. So yeah, I could. But yeah, I kind of agree with him in the sense that sequential art is hard. It is very complicated, and people just don't realize that there's a lot of people that do great pinups and they do great covers, but they just drop the ball on sequential art, and they can't really tell a story with their stuff. But so anyway, go ahead.
Oh, well, so I talked him into it, and then we started creating, we just started making things. And about, the campaign ended, Xevious is a lot more expensive than Joe was. And I was paying for it all on my own because everything that had been crowdfunded was paid to Joe. That only paid for what Joe did. So everything that's been done since then, I had paid for. But again, that is not... I'd always considered, that's not the customer's fault. That's my fault. I'm the one who made the choice about the artist. I'm the one who got into this. That's my fault. That's the way I always looked at it. And then it was last year around July, August. July, August is always a difficult time for me. And I mean, we're about to go into why. But it was, I kind of, in the beginning, I just sort of gave up for a while. I was like, I kind of give up. I'm just going to finish it. I started condensing like the storied pages where they would normally be like 6 to 8. I'd make it like 2. Just crush it in there and just be done and call it finished. And then July, August came, and July is the end of July and the beginning of August is the anniversary. And I always think about it, even if I don't want to, even if it doesn't matter where I am. I mean, 4 years ago, I was in Norway, climbing the top of a crane, looking at a pulley system, and I thought about it. So it always hits me somewhere. But anyway, I was with someone her name was Nikki, and we had been together for about a year. And then she's like, "Hey, I'm gonna go see my dad." I was like, "Okay." We were living together, so she's like, "I'm gonna go see my dad for a week." I was like, "Okay." I didn't think anything of it. I just thought, I'll miss you. I'll see you in a week. So she left, and 3 days later, I get a call from her dad, and he was kind of, he's a little terse, a little kind of angry, and I'm like, "What is going on?" And he finally, after insulting me for, I don't know, 10 minutes, he finally told me that Nikki had been in a car wreck. And not only had she been in a car wreck, but the doctors had misdiagnosed some internal bleeding. And they thought it was something else. But it turned septic. And once it turned septic, they just couldn't do anything about it. And her own blood was toxic and toxifying, and she died pretty painfully.
Oh man.
And then the worst thing about that is they said, he said, "Oh, by the way, she was about a month pregnant." And he's like, "We're gonna have services in 4 days." And I said, "Can I come up and say my goodbyes?" And I really couldn't afford it. I was finishing a 6-year degree. I was finishing a lot of other things. And he said, "No, I'd rather you not be here."
Buddy, I'm sorry, dude. That's gut wrenching, dude.
So I couldn't really function. I mean, I was trained to be a behavioral therapist. I had a psychotherapy license. I had been an internship. I knew all the things to say to somebody. I knew all the things to do. I knew how I'm supposed to go through this, and it didn't matter. It just broke me. It just shattered into a million pieces. And I was like, I want to leave. And, I was telling you before the show started, I actually, I went to the military the next day, and I said, "What can you do for me? I want to get out. I want to leave." And they had me take the ASVAB, and I knocked that out of the park. And they were like, "Okay, we want you to come back tomorrow and take this special phonetics and linguistics test. It's for like code breaking and learning languages and picking up languages and stuff from other, from radio transmission." And I said, "Sure." So I came back and took that, and I scored in the upper 80s. And they're like, "That's the highest score we've had in 20 years in the state. So we're going to send you to the school, but it's going to take 2 weeks." And I'm like, "Nope, that's too far. That's too long. I got to get out of here now." And I had the ability to get what's called an A&P license, which is an airframe and power plant, which basically means you work on airplanes. Okay. And I had worked in general aviation, a place called Cardinal Wings Aviation, with my dad. But all my hours had been logged. And since all my hours were logged, I had enough hours to be able to take the tests if I wanted to, as long as somebody signed off on them. So my dad signed off on them because he was, he was an A&P for 20 years. And he's like, "Okay." He's like, "I understand." He's like, I'll sign off for it." So he signed off for me to take the test. I took the test at a local facility. I passed within the week. And probably 2 or 3 days later, I was on my way out of the country. And I just, for a long time, I lived life like I didn't want to be in it. So, that was, but then eventually I did come back home to the States and still was really depressed. Couldn't quite put things together, but I always tell people that, like, if you don't know where to go, pick a direction and start moving. until you can, because the best thing you can do is move.
Mm.
And so I did that for a while, and I've done all different kinds of things. I ended up in robotics. I don't even know how I got there, but I ended up in robotics. And so now I'm a field manager and robotics engineer, and I drive all the time and tell people what to do and fix things, you know? And it's just kind of funny. You know, I set out to fix people, and I ended up fixing machines.
Machines are easier to fix than people.
Oh yeah, yeah.
So much easier.
Heck of a lot less variation and deviation, even though there is. I mean, you know, in the different like complex, you know, especially like submachine coding and all that kind of stuff, it gets pretty complex, but it's still even like people. The difference is that a machine will do what it's supposed to do, what it's programmed to do.
Yeah.
People will go against their quote unquote programming all the time.
Yeah.
You know, and they're programmed. I tell, you know, like I said, we talked about this too, is people as a whole, we learn the wrong lessons. And the reason why we learn the wrong lessons is because we're not learning lessons to get better, which is what, you know, I mean, the entire idea of language and communication was built for, was to spread fitness and to make it so that you lived better than the people before you. You know, I mean, that's the reason for language, education, for books, for printing, everything. And we still, though, we don't do that.
Yeah.
We do whatever, you know, what we want. I always tell people, you know, we talk about traffic, right? You know what the problem with traffic is? The problem with traffic is it is built that if everyone does what's intended to be good for everyone else and benefit to everyone else, then it works perfectly. But maybe 15% of people do that.
I'll tell you, every accident or everything slowed down the road is always because of one moron. I'm like, there's an idiot up there that caused all this. And every time there's an idiot up there that caused all that. And so you're absolutely
I mean,
right.
there's like
Absolutely right.
it's called the break flow paradox, and it has to do with like a break even paradox, and it has to do with economics and the way that things work is, or the way that basically it's the number that needs to be there for the system to go awry. And in traffic, that number is 13%. If 13% of the people don't do what they're supposed to, then you get wrecks, you get, you know, conflict, congestion, all that other stuff. So that's a pretty low percentage, right? To say, okay, this messes up the entire system. So that's pretty bad. But anyways, going back to what happened. So the reason why I talk about all that now is because it was about a month or two ago. I was, you know, I had finally decided, or last August rather, I finally decided that, you know what, I'm going to do this because I finally realized why I had been doing this. I created this book, a fairy tale that was about family, that was about, you know, keeping together in the hardest times, and what I considered those kind of like traditional, not Western or Christian only, but just traditional family values, you know? And I'm like, I think this is missing. I want to have it, but I want to have it in a dark fairy tale. These people suffer, they hurt, they go through real life kind of relatable events in a fantastic way, because that's the way I think of characters, is that characters, you know, magical characters and all that, it's just another tool set to use to solve problems. And so, and I think by approaching it that way, it's like, okay, the problem is something that you've had. They just solve it differently, or they have the ability to solve it differently, right? And that's the way I kind of approach all that. But in looking through the character, I realized, like, and I should have realized it because I mean her name's there, that I had basically named the character, you know, that I had created the family I could never have. I was never able to have that family with her, so I wrote it and said it. And when I realized that, I was like, okay, I can't put out junk work anymore. I can't condense this story. I can't do this. I can't do that. I'm like, if it takes 3 years, it takes 3 years. But I'm not going to do a disservice to one of the only people I've ever really loved in my life. I'm just not going to do that.
Wow, that's deep, man. No, I mean, it's so much more than a comic book at that point. It is a love letter. It's a tribute. I mean, it's it's your last respects. You were not able to do the funeral and, to be there. And so this is your gravesite, man.
Well, I mean, I've gone up there since, obviously. And,
yeah, but I mean, you weren't
I
there
wasn't
for
able
that
to.
moment. I mean, so, I mean, what I do for a living. I'm a pastor. That's my calling. It's not just my vocation. It's my calling. And one of the hardest things to do is to go through loss with people. And that moment of closure is so important. My dad passed away while I was sick with COVID, and I was in the hospital fighting for my life, and he was fighting for his, and he lost his fight. And so they had, they'd done all the cremation and all that kind of stuff. But I was finally able this last June to travel back home to be able to do the memorial service. And the memorial service was very important because it was for closure. Yeah, a lot of time had gone, but none of the family had closure yet because we weren't able to put the punctuation on that relationship and on that love. And so it's very important to have those moments. And as you're talking, the pastor side of me is flaring up. It's like, this is your punctuation on the relationship. And it makes sense why you've been so focused on making sure that this is perfect. And I think you've hired the right artist for this. Now I have to ask, whose face is that?
He just drew that. I mean, I didn't give him a picture of Nikki or anything like that. It was just, he just drew that. It does look, I mean, Nikki did have blonde hair. She was a cheerleader for University of Louisville. So she was in very good shape, very, very, I don't know, enthusiastic. She was a very sweet person. But it was, I mean, if you've ever seen the movie Inception, there's this one point where he's staring at his dead wife in his memory, and he's like, you can't, he's like, basically, you pale in comparison to the real thing, but you're the best I can do.
Yeah.
And I feel like the same way. Like, anything I say about Nikki's not going to be enough. You know what I mean? It's not going to be like, I'm always going to fall short. This is the best I can do. And the best I can do is take what talent I have. I'm a good writer. I understand behavior. I'm very good at creating things, at creating ideas. And I can take those things and put them together. And I didn't know, like I said, that I had done that until about like 2 months ago. And I was working, which I'm always doing, but I was working, and it was early in the morning, like literally like 4 or 5 o'clock, and I'm just driving. And a lot of times when I'm just driving and I'm not listening to anything, I'm thinking, obviously, and I have time, my brain, because, and that's a thing, they tell you, like, you get your ideas in the shower or whatever, because you've given your brain downtime. And since you've given your brain downtime, what it does, like naturally, intrinsically, is it works out problems you've had while you're doing that. You don't know that, but that's what it's doing. It's working out problems that you've had. So like, okay, cool. So I worked out finally. And the way that I work things out is writing, because I'm a writer. And this is what I wrote. And I realized after I wrote this, and I read it to myself, I was like, holy crap, she's all through this. So I'm gonna indulge this. I apologize, I didn't preface it, but it's a poem I wrote called "Thank You," and it's thank you for looking over me, even when you couldn't. I still remember those starlit nights when two kids skipped rocks and dreamed with a pen and a smile. But now you're gone, but you're also not, because everything I dream and bring to reality has you and your smile and your heart written all over it. And so I realized in doing that, I was like, wow, she taught me to skip rocks. We would break into the park at night at the Ohio River, in between Louisville and Indiana. And we would break into the park at night, and I'd lean against a tree and just write things. And she would lean into me, and we would just look up, and she's like, hey, have you ever skipped rocks before? And I was like, no. She's like, are you kidding me? She's like, you're from the South. You live through, around all these waterways and you never skipped rocks. And I'm like, I just never saw a reason for it. And she's like, why does there got to be a reason for things? And so she just grabbed me and pulled me over and we started throwing rocks across the river. It was the silliest thing. But in trying to learn this skill, we got closer. And it was one of the, again, like it's one of the
I have a
things
joke
that
about
happened in
that
my-
river, but I don't know that it's appropriate with what we're talking about.
Well, I've got here because since we're talking, oh, there it is.
And while you're doing that, let me welcome a couple people here to the chat. We've got Blue Samurai is here. He says he's got to rewind. He caught the end of your story, and so it's very cool. Tarks9 is here. Welcome, Tarks9. We're talking with Buddy Lord and about Sins of the Fae, and he's got a very emotional story that goes with it. Voice doing well. Comics Mate is here. Dean is here. Hail, Dean. It's good to see you. And Pixel Trader saying a dinosaur hasn't made my eyes misty since Land Before Time. And he loves you, brother. And then Lugnuts is saying I'm doing some weeping. Yeah, it's a very emotional story. And and that got me. Boy, did that get me. And it's great. So so what are we looking at here?
Well, this is Nikki as a child, and she's with her friend Sarah, and they're looking up at the stars. And the whole idea is that I take, like I said, magical realism, magic and science, science and magic, and in this case, would have taken as a popular fable idea, wishing on a star, right?
Yeah.
So they're skipping rocks because she's had she's a witch, and she's had a lesson with her grandmother, and it just didn't work out. And she's not able to cast the spells like she's supposed to. She's supposed to have this lineage of power, and she just hasn't been able to work it out, and she can't stand it. So her friend does what a friend does, right? She takes her to the river. Let's skip some rocks. Let's drink some whiskey at a solo cups and dream, big dreams. And so they see a falling star, and she says, you should summon that. And that's the beginning of the story. Nikki says, okay, I'll try to summon it.
Very cool.
And she succeeds, and I can just go. It's like, here's the star. This is actually the first page of the book, without all the lettering or the Sins of the Fae logo. And
So
stuff.
is this this looks like a 2-page spread. Is that what this is?
Yeah, this is a double splash. Yeah, and it is one like this is the falling star, and they see that. The next page is the one that I just showed you.
Okay.
And they see that, and she's like, and she's saying, see, you see them right here? And she's like, hey, is that one of them? You think it's one of them? And she's like, what do you mean? She's like, one of them Fae. And she's like, I heard you can summon them. And I'm talking in, Southern dialect because they're supposed to be in Sanderson, Florida.
Okay, there you go.
I grew up there, so
All right.
and they're like, hey, da 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 da. So she's like, well, let's, so like she summons it, and when she does, this person comes out, and this is Owen, and
Owen's
Owen
cool looking.
it's supposed to be Sir Nunes or the Huntsman. Sir Nunes is the one-horned god.
Mhm.
And he comes down and he's like, okay, I'm compelled by the knowing to answer your question or to give you what you want. What do you want? And she says, well, I want my fairy tale. And he's like, you're kind, you're people. They always wish for this sort of thing, and they don't know what they're asking for. What you're dealing with is Faecraft, and Faecraft always comes with a price. And she tells him, price be damned, I know what I want. And he says, okay, fine, what do you want? And she's like, I want to, she's like, I don't want to be a hero. I don't want to learn magic or to cast spells. I just want to be a mother. And it ends the prologue at that point. And that is, I have that. I don't have those words, but I have that image where they're talking to one another in like a scrolled page, because it's sort of like it's being read at this point.
Mhm.
These words are wrong, but this page is right.
Okay.
And she says, I want to be a mother.
We can't see the words anyway, so.
Yeah. So he's, and he says, and then you don't know what he says or what's happening. You turn the page and it says, end prologue, begin, price be damned.
Nice. So so it opens up on a 2-page spread. Is that inside front cover and that one right there, is that inside front cover and page 1, or do you have something else on page what would technically be page 1.
Technically, this is page 4, I believe.
Okay, so that would be 2 and 3 or 4 and 5, because they open.
This
on...
is 4 and 5. That's what I'm saying.
Okay,
Technically,
4 and 5.
this is 4 and 5.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay, all right.
Yeah.
I'm being the production guy that I am, like with all this stuff. I get interested in the creative choices behind that stuff a lot, because because what a lot of people don't realize is that comic books are, again, they're more than just open the page and read some panels. They can be quite an experience, as theatrical as movies can be. And this is very theatrical. Now, this was so your campaign ended when?
The campaign ended officially, like it went in demand, like, oh gosh, like September, or not September, like December 2020 or January 2021 or something like that. It closed completely about 2 weeks ago.
Yeah, so 2 weeks ago, I know you closed it completely, but when was it supposed to fulfill?
Like, yeah, that would have been about December 2020 or January 2021.
All right, so we're coming up on about 2 years now. And so I know a lot of people are, how have you dealt with people complaining about the lateness? Because I'm sure somebody has.
I answered them immediately.
Okay, very good.
Like,
have you been able to keep any backers that maybe have been on the fence?
I've only had one backer come to me in the entire time and say they wanted their money back.
Okay, cool. All right.
I mean, I've tried to put out updates when I could. If I had things that were happening, I tried to tell people. And even like when I was depressed and I was pulling back from everything, if someone messaged me or wrote to me on Twitter or on Indiegogo, I would answer as soon as I could, as soon as I saw it. And I think that goes a long way. When you just, if I couldn't, like, look, I can't give you what you want, but what I can give you is transparency and honesty. Okay. And so I've always kind of leaned on that pillar.
Yeah.
Instead of saying.
Now, to be fair, I do want people to know that I'm asking you questions that I honestly do not know the answer to. So I'm just kind of learning this, because this is stuff that I'm curious about, because I've seen it happen with a lot of people. I had a friend who ran a campaign. I had ran campaigns for him before this, but he had went off on his own and ran a campaign, was not able to fulfill. Someone did some wonky stuff with the money, some screwy stuff with the money, so he didn't get what he needed, or someone was like, hey, I need to borrow. Someone that was close, someone that had actually wound up screwing me out of some money. Not screwing me out of, stole money. Who is no longer part of my circle, obviously. But the guy did something similar to him, but got him to loan him the money, but never paid it back. And so he was unable to pay for shipping and, all the other stuff. And so he had been out of the scene for years. And I said, dude, let me do what I can. Let me try to do what I can to at least get the book, because you've got the book finished. Let me get it printed and let me get it out to the backers. They can't get all the extra stuff that you promised, but anybody that wants a refund them the money, and we'll ship them the book anyway. And he wound up paying for everything to try to make it whole. But he was a very talented writer, and he wasn't doing comic books because this. Now, the problem with a lot of creative people is we all have, and I include myself in this, we all have mental health, if not issues, moments. We have mental health moments, and it wore him down, and it made him embarrassed, and it hurt, and it made him just retreat rather than just answer the questions and kind of take your bruises, take your lumps, and move on. Which that's the advice I normally give people. It's like, look, fess up, take your lumps, and move on. People will forgive you, and they will work with you if you take your lumps and then you do your best to deliver the best thing that you can. And so we wound up going through that, but I found that in this situation, he pulled back away from it, and he still has not made a new book yet, though he should. I mean, he's incredibly talented. And so talk a little bit about that, because I think that from what I'm hearing you say, you had that moment of wanting to pull back, but you still.
Oh, I was ready to give up. I was ready to just walk away. I had thought about it several times. I'm like, I could, it would call it. I got to the point where, economically, I'm like, it would cost me less to pay people back than it would to finish the book. And so I was like, I could do that right now and just walk away, and all I would lose is the community. And at the time, I didn't feel welcomed by the community I was in anyway. So I was like, does it really matter? And so I went through that. I did. And then, like I said, I discovered why, what it really was to me. And I think, you're asking, how you go about these things. And I think the first thing you have to you've got to make a decision. What does this mean to me? If you don't like your job, what is your job to you? If you don't like something else, what is it to you? What actually is it to you? And this, to me, it's more than a love letter. It's more than anything else. Like I said, I cannot have a family. I will never be able to have a family with Nikki. She's gone for, a long time. This is the family that I'll have. And I've thought about it, and I thought, okay, why am I finishing it though? Like, I could start it, but why don't I just, I do this one thing, and what's going to happen after that? And I thought, okay, well, I think I understand why now. And why is that I was not able to have a family with her, so I wrote a family. And anybody who goes on this journey with me and reads this story, you are my family. You're our family.
Dude, that's deep.
And when I realized that, I was like, okay, I will drag this story through melted, broken glass on bare feet. I will do whatever I have to get this done. And once you reach that point, then you start looking for solutions and not problems, and it's,
so then in comes Xevious with he's the right artist to capture your visual interpretation of this world. He's quite expensive compared to the other guy. This book I know that it's costing you way more than what you raised. And I've heard you say that you're planning on giving all of the backers extra stuff.
Well, yeah,
am I wrong there? Or did I hear that wrong?
No. I mean, the book is okay. So it started out as a 48-page book. That's what everybody signed up for, 25, 35, whatever dollars for a 48-page book, because that was the standard at the time.
Yeah.
The book is now standing at 100 or sitting at 108 pages.
Wow.
Total.
Whoa.
Graphic novel, baby.
It's 108 pages, and it's not like 20 pages of filler. There's literally 2 pages of other than the Twilight forward and the outro that's going to be there for Nikki, and then there's a few page breaks. It's around 97 to 99 pure story pages.
Nice.
It's just pure art, and I call it. I think it's almost like a new medium. It's much more similar to what like the bande dessinée is doing, or even a light novel, but with more art. So I call it a light graphic novel when people ask me about it, because it's not really a comic book. I don't write comic books. I don't know how to write a comic book. I do. I could learn. I'm not going to. What I write is what I write poetry. I write prose. I write lyrically. And so when I wrote these kind of things, like here, I'll pull this up so you can, again, so this one here, this was my script for this. I said, Nikki's in her own mind space now. It's all pink and purple as the background, synaptic nerve clusters behind her, as if she is sitting in her own brain with the surge between axon and dendrite going off all the time. As lightning from her nerve cells strikes, forming a scarred landscape, the light forms a shadow on the wall, the shadow of a man. As she gets closer to the form creating the shadow, she sees only a golden butterfly, one that talks.
And that's what he drew.
Yep. And this, this is, she's talking to this butterfly in her mind, and he's asking her questions that are pretty hard. He's like, why can't you get past this stuff? And she's like, why are you bothering me? Who are you? And he begins to talk to her. And then you find out that he was actually sent there by her true father. She is the scion of Yggdrasil, or Yggdrasil. and he sent, he was sent to her mind to bring her to a place where she could be brought in front of her father again and be asked, because at the very beginning, what she essentially does is she takes the only path possible to give away her powers, to give away the ability she has. And then within the story, she pays for that.
Someone's ears were scratching.
Yeah, right.
Itching.
You
Yeah.
did.
And that's what this story is. This is essentially her hero origin. She gives away her power. She has to get it back, but she has to earn it back through pain, because that's how we learn. We learn through pain and struggle, and we figure out what it, like I said, what it is, what it means to us. What does it mean to you? And she figures out what it means to her. She figures out what she wants to do. She never wanted to be a hero. She didn't want the power. She didn't care about the magic. So what did she care about? So she finally realizes what she cares about, what she wants.
That's awesome.
And in that process, she, rekindles herself, because there's a very flame of like, she's like, there's a fire, and she let it quench, and her mother could cover herself in this like silver argent fire. We call it the argent flame. And she could cover herself in it, and Nikki's never been able to do that. And so she's fighting, but there's these moments where it's like, you begin to take this, smoldering ruin or this cold fireplace, and turn it back into a smoldering ruin. It's beginning to churn again. And you see that, and you evolve with her. And that's what I like to do with stories. That's why I don't write comic books. I write, I write very deep, emotional, cathartic, dark fairy tales. And
now, I wouldn't say that comic books can't have that element, too. They can.
Oh, I think they absolutely can. But I'm just saying, for the most part, when people think comics, they think like,
they think of something else than this. They don't think of this visual experience, which I think this is going to be a visual experience. I know that you've encountered a lot of hiccups along the way.
Yeah.
But I got to say, dude, I commend you. Number one, for just coming on this crazy little YouTube show and telling such an emotional story. Number one, I hope that we can send people here to be able to hear your story and get the emotion behind it, because it shows us one thing, that comics, or the visual medium of storytelling with words and pictures, that it's more than just superheroes. It's more than just fun ideas, that it's can be something that comes from a very deep emotional place. And I think some of the best writing comes from tragedy. I look at some of my favorite lyricists, some of my favorite songs, they come from tragic places. One of my favorite artists of all time is a guy named Johnny Cash. You might have heard of him. Mm-hmm. And in the movie, famously in the movie, he goes with his band to the record label, and they're playing their kind of cookie cutter, lackluster gospel songs, because that's what's popular on the radio. And the AR guy looks at him and says, because if you walk out the door right now and get hit by a car and you're dying with your last breath, are you telling me that's the song you want to sing? And Johnny starts singing Folsom Prison Blues, with all that pain and emotion in it. Now, Johnny had never been to jail. He'd never been to prison, but it was the emotion, that feeling of being trapped, because he felt like he was trapped in this prison in his life. And that emotion came out, and it was real. And he had a tragic life, and he had great lyrics. Freddie Mercury, great lyrics, tragic life. Kurt Cobain, great lyrics, tragic life. So I start thinking about these people, and I think that great art comes from tragedy, because the pain that the creator feels, they're seeking happiness, and through the art, they're reaching for that happiness. And it is by God's grace to all of us that we get to enjoy the happiness that they find in the art, because it can bring us through our pain to that happiness as well. And so if you're watching and you are hearing this story and you've gone through something, you love comic books, you're not quite sure how to do it, dude, hit Buddy up and talk about this. Maybe this is an avenue for you. And
I was gonna say, oh, sorry.
No, go right ahead.
I was gonna say, and I am constantly seeing Xevious and Buddy, posting art and updates about the book, and like the Xevious arts grabbed me. I can't imagine like this kind of story being told with any other artist at this point.
Yeah, me neither. Yeah, Xevious is going to catch the replay. But I love that he said, hey, what up, nerds? Because that's what we are here. We are nerds. I mean, clearly, you hear some of the stuff Buddy talks, like when Buddy's talking, and all I'm thinking to myself is, I don't really even understand what he's saying. I'm just like,
I'm not a smart man.
I've got an education and I don't feel like a smart man sometimes. And I'm like, okay, those are words, But yeah, it's good. This is good stuff. So Justin Dutton finally made it tonight. So, Justin, you've been going through. I'm gonna take this out now, and great. Beautiful pages, buddy. Beautiful pages.
It reminds me of like Vertigo, like Sandman.
Yeah, it's
very abstract and like just
it's very cool.
Unique, different, not the norm, but it works.
Yeah. Now, Justin, you've been going through some issues with Unstitched. Now, obviously, Unstitched isn't. It's not a tribute to, unless you dated a bear a long time ago. I don't know. Did you date a teddy bear?
No, I did not.
Not a furry. Not a furry. Okay.
Not at all.
Yeah, I actually asked the question about doing anthropomorphic characters, and about 50% of the response was no furries. I'm like, no, it's not going to be furry. Come on, you guys know me. I'm not doing furry stuff. I'm doing like a fun story. But anyway, I'm just messing. I'm trying to.
I prefer anthropomorphic stories just because you can tell a lot of social things without it being like hey, look, this is the pinpoint social thing. It lets you be more vague, but also more precise.
The Woke Breakers want to know if everybody on the panel is artists and writers. No, I'm an artist and writer. Piper's writer, editor. She does art, but not sequentials, right?
Yeah, I haven't done sequentials. I kind of want to work up to that one day if I ever get enough free time.
Yeah, I don't have the artistic ability of a turnip, so no, I just write.
Okay. Just write. And as far as I know, Justin, you're just a writer as well, right?
I draw, but not like any comic stuff. It's just more of I'll do rough sketches and be like, hey, here's what I'm thinking for a design.
Yeah. Now, Piper can do art, and she can do logo designs and stuff like that. So if you need somebody, she can also help out with those things. She does good work. But yeah, so no, Woke Breaker, it's a mix. It's a mix, but primarily it's writers. I would talk with more artists, but they're usually asleep by now. It's something about drawing. Or they're drawing. Yeah, I don't know. Something about writers. We're like, yeah, let's get ready. Let's talk. Yeah.
Yeah, X and I were having a conversation about this the other day, where I was kind of grading myself as far as ability and as a writer in certain different areas, and I said in ability to design or conceive and like draw fashion or something, I would give myself like a 2. I just don't have that ability. But to create things, I'd say like an 8 or 9, and then just to actually tell the story, 8 or 9. So I'm a really good writer. But when it comes to like the design and I lean on my artist because I don't have that ability. I can't see that.
Yeah. I'm in the rare. Now I did creative writing in school. I wrote songs. I public speak for a living. So words and phrases I'm good with. but I never thought of myself as a writer. I always thought of myself first as an artist, and I would like, well, I'll let somebody else write. And my first attempt at writing was Hybrids #1, like that I actually wrote that one. And someone was like, dude, this isn't too bad. Now I've read it back later, and Piper helped me fix some things. It's got some problems, and I'm aware of them. But once you're like 5 or 6 issues in, you're like, yeah, some of those problems are just gonna have to stay there. We're gonna have to fix those fix that down the road. But at that point, I started to flex my writing muscles, and so taking all of that other stuff into context, I kind of feel like I'm more of a writer now than an artist, especially when I see work like what Xevious is doing, or Eric Hawkins, who's in the chat saying he's awake and drawing, which is, if artists are awake right now, they're drawing most likely, except for me. I'm the only one that's not.
I can say this, like when I get really, really into drawing, it's what keeps me up at night.
Mm-hmm.
But what gets me like my brain going earlier in the day is writing. It's weird.
So that's why you never sleep.
Yeah. So I never get to
Yeah. So if you're a writer and artist, you never sleep. That's what happens. You just never get to sleep. But I do wish I could draw. He said, I wish I could draw. I guess I'm not bad, but yeah, I wish I could draw.
out in my
I used to be able to
downtime.
draw better because I went to school for animation, so we had to do storyboards and stuff. But I did better at like the actual 3D animation rather than the modeling. Or I could model, but I was like, hey, just go ahead and give me the concept art.
I used to model too.
For Victoria's Secret.
I mean,
Exactly.
I was gonna say Amish lately.
Yeah.
Look at that hat, like.
You know what?
I dated a lingerie model. Does that count?
Yes. it does count. I want to pet the dinosaur so bad.
Buddy, you spend this whole time making me like you, right? And then you go off and say some crap like that. And I'm like, dude, just stop.
Well, I've legitimately been
I dated a
binging
lingerie
tutorials in my downtime.
Yay! Think about what you've accomplished.
I'm sorry.
Oh no!
I'm sorry. I cut Piper off.
No, not my fucking, not my sleep paralysis demon. Why is she on?
Piper, you are one of the best. You are one of the best. Piper does not get enough credit for what she's capable of doing. I think a couple reasons. Number one, man, I'm gonna make some enemies right now when I say this. Piper's very talented at writing, at editing, and art and things like that, but she doesn't compromise who she is to get recognized for any of those things. She is like head down working kind of person. And unfortunately, in comics in general, it's difficult for women to get ahead because of identity issues that we have. Now, I'm going to say that in comics in general because we do have a lot of women like Gail who are in comics, but they've gotten there maybe off of talent, but then wokeness has gotten there. But the problem is Piper is a CG creator. So she's comics. She aligns a different way politically with values different than a lot of people. So in comics, now she's got this other hill to climb because they're like, oh, well, you're this or that.
I'll also say that Piper's a like a lunch pill type worker, blue collar. Even though, it's writing and stuff and people would think like that's a white collar job. But, she's very hardworking. But
she works her butt off.
But in comics, it kind of like they notice or award the peacock people, like
Yeah.
Once you show
Piper,
up,
one thing you don't do is you don't brag about yourself.
Yeah.
And so I think it's my job to
comics
brag about
rewards
Piper.
that, though.
Yeah. So I think we should brag about Piper. Piper, you're one of the best.
I try to sometimes, because I know one thing that got me over a lot was the term "fake it till you make it" for confidence, and just if I stay mousy and or whatever, I'm not gonna get anywhere if I'm terrified of, oh no, they're not gonna like. Just be me as loud as possible, and
Right on.
eventually that'll be my normal mode, and that pisses people off. But
that
man,
kid's
it
got
helped
moxie.
me. Right, it's
Yeah.
helped me. It pisses people off, but it helps
Yeah.
me.
That kid's got moxie. See, moxie. Yeah, I could see that.
She's
I could see that
she's
happening.
got gumption.
Yeah, gumption. But
I got old people words. Fuck yeah, no.
like I mean, if anybody wants to know how good Piper is, I mean, just read Hybrids. I mean, she went in there, especially this remastered stuff. Which, by the way, shameless plug, I am currently crowdfunding on my website for the remastered trade paperback.
That's cool.
So yeah, go to lukestonestudios.com and find the link that says Hybrids TPB. Click on that, and you get crowdfund right there. Doing crowdfunding from my own website with a secure server, so that so you know what, deplatform this, baby.
Yeah, I
Right?
was gonna say, because now it's starting to feel like not even Indiegogo is stable.
Yeah, it's not.
Indiegogo has a new person in charge since I think 2019 or 2018. So it's not the same Indiegogo that some people are used, thinking
Yeah, it's not the same.
as it has new head person. So
I think that's why people are so upset with Ripa, because he's, not only is he making this money, but he's doing it without
He's
bending the knee to
bypassed
these other.
control.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's like they can't deplatform him because it's his platform. So
Yeah, but that's good and bad.
It is. Yeah.
I mean, I understand. More power, more power to him. He's doing fantastic. There's not so people say, "Oh, I hope he does good." He is doing good. There's no.
Yeah, I hope he does good. He's done
way
good.
way better
Yeah.
than everything. So it's like, okay,
those combined,
and that's wonderful. But it's also the whole idea for Indiegogo or Kickstarter is more that it's an aggregate, and that those places, so you go to those places and then you find the other things. It's like, if we're all separate entities, somebody's got to find you somehow.
Yeah.
Yeah,
that is true. And
it's kind of funny because it's a regression back to link trees, I guess.
Yeah, but
where
the
you
other,
go to somebody's site and you're like,
Yeah.
hey, if you like my book, check out these.
but the other problem that you run into is that you're already having issues with that because of this shadow banning. There are people that you just can't see their stuff because it's being hidden from you. And that's another issue that we, because these platforms, they gatekeep, and it's unfortunately, that is something we have to deal with. And Jim Cox says it there, that's what CG Now is for. And that's great. But there are people that may be a big fan of our books, but because of what CG has been in the past, or because of what a certain person who flies that hashtag, the way they act or behave, or maybe their book wasn't very good, because there's a lot of people that fly that hashtag. To be quite honest, I have them blocked on Twitter. I have nothing to do with them. I can name you 3 people right now that fly that flag very proudly, and I don't want any association with those 3 people at all, because they're nothing like me. We don't think the same. We don't act the same, and our quality certainly isn't on the same level. And so that becomes a problem when people are like, they've got a bad taste in their mouth about Comicsgate, so they don't want to go to CG Now. That's why you've got the platforms that you do. That's why you've got people.
We have Indicron.
We have Indicron, yeah. Pixel Trader has got Indicron, and we should be using that platform a lot more because it is a universal platform, and it's ran by someone that's not going to gatekeep people. So that is an option. Now I'm doing it from my website, as I only need
kind of has. I'm
What's
sorry,
that?
I just don't want to get too far away. Is that he already had built up clout and audience, before,
Yeah.
well before he did this. So
Yeah.
eyes were already on him. This is something that I think probably Ethan could do. I think he could pull it off. Forgoing Indiegogos and any of that stuff, and just doing his own site,
Right.
and funding his stuff through there, but for the same reason. He's gotten all these years of
Yeah,
He's
it's
got a
great.
huge audience. They're
Yeah.
gonna find him over there.
Yeah. So yeah, I'm crowdfunding from my website. I'm asking $500 to cover a modest print run of this new trade paperback, right? And that equates to about 20 people supporting me on that platform. I'm running the campaign for more than 60 days because I'm running other campaigns on bigger platforms. I would love it if I can make the same amount on that platform as if I ran an Indiegogo, but probably not because I have a much smaller audience.
We got a lot of work to do.
A lot of
to
work
get
ahead of
there.
us, and I've even got a small channel compared to what other people do. And that's why I'm paying experts to help me sift up into the list so I can get more subs. It's like, help me fix things, tell me what I need to do to draw the attention of people, because Young Repa Air July has 400,000 subscribers. Those 400,000 subscribers identify with me and my politics, right? Because I'm one of his subscribers. So 399,999 people other than me agree with his politics and his views on pop culture and his views on comic books, right? Those people would like what I'm doing. They would like what you're doing. I'm trying to figure out how do I get those people to see my channel so that I can sell them my book and I can sell them your books. Because I do want to be a load-bearing pillar, not just for me. Yeah, I want to sell my book, but I also want to sell Piper's book and Buddy's book and Dutton's book and all of y'all's books out there. As long as you're cool and you got a good product, we want to bring you on and want you to show off what you're doing. Because we want to get more eyes on those projects. So I'm trying to figure out, well, how do I get on in front of them so that they can hit that subscribe button? What do I got to do? And so I'm hiring somebody to help me do that while I can afford it. I've budgeted in. I'm like, okay, instead of like buying this extra thing that I want to get, I made a little extra money on this campaign. Praise God, I did that. It worked out. So how can I use that money to flip it back into the business to be able to make more money on the next go round? It's just like buying extra copies of a book, or trinkets or whatnots, things like that.
That's one thing that a lot of people keep telling me is that I'm not as noteworthy as other creators. Chicks or not, but chicks I get compared to, obviously, because I'm not like YouTube famous. And I'm like, I just have YouTube to hang out. And I keep getting really, really good advice. And it's one of those that that is great advice. If there were more hours than 24 in a day,
you would be on it.
I would implement the shit out of that.
I don't know. I can't do that. I find most of that pretentious anyway.
Yeah.
I mean, if I'm completely honest, like I don't care about Ripa's politics, so I don't find anything he says all that interesting. I mean, I don't think it's anything.
I'm not as picky about people's politics or anything
Yeah.
have to align with me.
Yeah.
It's more
Well, I
like,
don't even.
if you're not a piece of shit,
Yeah, exactly. That's
Don't be
kind of where
shitty.
I am with it.
like, don't
is-
be shitty. I will get along with you.
Exactly,
Don't be
yeah.
shit.
And
Yeah,
that's sort
but
of
I
where
know there's
am.
at least 400,000 people out there that they would love everything
Yeah.
that I have to say, and they would love my books, right? So I'm like, I'm going after. I got to go after them. I have to, But yeah, the other thing is that, Eric, he did put in the initial investment. Now I think I do a lot of initial investment. You do a lot of initial investment. I think a lot of us do that, but it does get, we can't do it to that scale. It is that scale that's difficult, and that's where we need each other's help to get along with that. And Jim Cox says, I still think crowdfunding might evolve into one bigger entity. Crowdfunding handfuls of books are in marketing and distributing them themselves, web stores, wholesale, etc. Yeah, and I know that.
I think necessity is going to help push this too.
Yeah. Diamond used to be the only way people got comic books, and Diamond is learning that that's not the case anymore. They're starting to play a little more friendly, from what I hear, with smaller publishers, because now they're just a way. They're not the way. to get comics out.
Yeah, they
And,
can't get away with a lot of their predatory practices anymore when there's alternatives.
I mean, today I actually saw a large comic store in Ireland, like one of the biggest ones, saying, "Hey, after issue 2 of a series, if it's not pre-ordered, we're not ordering extra copies."
Nice, because they're like, look,
Not
we're
gonna
stuck
buy
with
these
the
just
extra
for them to
books.
sit on the shelves. Yeah.
Yeah, which makes it difficult. I mean, we still want to get our books in brick and mortar, and we're working on doing that, but not just brick and mortar. I'm working with a guy that is, you may have seen Agent Zero Comics out there doing some stuff. Justin, he's doing this thing where he's trying to find an avenue to sell his book in a new and creative way, and knowing that he needs that avenue, he doesn't have his book ready to sell yet because his artist is doing live streams on my channel. And so he's selling books, right? So he's like, okay, he's trying to set up a spinner rack deal in smoke shops. And so he's working on these little test markets with these stores that are kind of connected. And it's like, hey, let's work this out and test it, see if it works. If you can get a good proof of concept. And he's like, then we're going to, set this up and do more, So, I mean, in order for him to sell his book, he's, helping other people sell their book so that he'll have an avenue to sell his. And I think that's what we need to do. It's like, how can we help each other? Like, we're all trying to sell our book, but how can we,
I think
bring other people
business
along?
wise that people like, remember I keep saying like we learned the wrong lesson. I think people are learning the wrong lesson even from Ripa. Like, because what I'm hearing is that, everybody needs to be a YouTube. You need to do this. You need to have $600,000 in revenue before you start. You need to whatever. Okay.
Oh, dude, before Ripa, EVS was straight up telling everybody
That same stuff.
that exact
okay.
thing.
So you've got to. Here's my problem with any of that. You're all talking to the same people.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So there is no growth.
Mm-hmm.
How can there be a rising tide lift all boats when there is no it's the same water? There's no new.
Well, yes and no.
Well,
I mean,
same
we're
boat.
seeing that Rip is bringing people in that hadn't bought comics in years.
Yeah. Well,
So, there is an audience out there.
I
There's an
think
audience out
they're
there.
gonna
And
buy, but we're saying most likely they're gonna buy his comic, and I think that,
Yeah.
or if they bought comics in years, they're still comic fans. They were just disenfranchised. What I'm saying is, you're looking at an audience of 80 to 100,000 people. Okay, look at the book market. The book market is hundreds of millions. In bande dessinée, you've got hundreds of millions. Manga's got billions. Manhwa's got billions. Why are we okay with 100,000? That's the problem. If you want to talk about a rising tide, and that's what I say.
The problem is, it's not that it's just that that's the only ones we're reaching. Like, we have to find new ways to reach those people. And that's what, that's what we're talking about.
Well, I think some of that is because, like, okay, if you say the only way you can do something is through YouTube and da 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 da, well, guess what? You're only going to get the people that da 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 da. You're only going to get those. That's it. So I mean,
it's not the way. It's not the only way. It is a way. And so, I know that there are 400,000 people on YouTube that like comic books, that are willing to buy one, if they feel like it's a good one. Or, I know that there are, a few thousand out there that'll buy one if they like someone's personality, So I don't necessarily want people to buy my book just for my personality, but I'm okay if you buy my book because you like me. I want you to like the story too, so I'm going to work my butt off for that. But I'm okay if you buy it because you like me too, And so I think that there's a lot of opportunity out there to reach people that are comic book fans and that may be disenfranchised with what they're seeing right now from the big two. But we have to find other ways. And that's why I'm so in love with this idea of the spinner rack thing, because that's putting comic books now in front of people that don't go into a comic book shop. That's always been my problem with the comic book store. It's very niche. I'll tell the story. Back when I was a kid, we used to have a bread store, the Wonder Red Bread Store, whatever it was called. And all you could buy there was bread. Okay. Now, there were brands of bread there that we didn't have everywhere else. My mom would go there specifically for bread and certain kinds of bread. That place closed. Now, Walmart still had bread. They had other brands of bread. Those smaller brands that only sold, that would only get distributed through these smaller venues that were specifically bread stores, they didn't get sold anymore because that little place closed. The problem with comic book shops, they're so niche that you have to go to a comic book shop to find a comic book, right? They're not just on the shelf somewhere in on the aisle as you go out. Even when they set them up in Walmart, the Brett Weiser's books, they're all the way back in electronics by the video games. They don't belong there. Put them by the front register, and that's what they need to be sold, is by the front register. It's an impulse buy. It's $5. That looks kind of cool. Let the kids look at it. They're excited. Mom, give me this book. And you throw the book on the thing with the candy bar and you give them a comic book. That's how I got started on comic books, because they were at the newsstand. They were at the grocery store. I found comic books there. And later, no more comic books at the newsstand. I had to wait until I could either walk or ride my bike there or have my mom and dad drive me to the comic book store.
And I was
changed everything.
Like I live out in the middle of nowhere. The closest comic shop is an hour and a half away. So if I want to get comics, that's 3 hours.
Yeah.
There
You've got to order comic books. And see, that's the other thing right now. The internet is our storefront. I think that's what a lot of people don't realize. The internet is our storefront.
Makes it really hard to reach younger people, because it's like, well, you're gonna have to have a credit card and be looking for it or whatever.
Yeah. But my wife and daughter, they love these guys, the Game Grumps, and they got a great channel. I watch them; they're hilarious. But they sell merch like crazy, and if we want to find young readers, we got to figure out how to reach them and where they're at. And truthfully, I know it may not be popular, but a lot of these people are on YouTube. It's one of the platforms that everybody uses universally, because there's not really another platform that does this kind of thing. So we broadcast on YouTube. Now people are starting to go over to Twitch. And so we've got to figure out how to use Twitch and TikTok to sell our comics. If you don't want to use TikTok to sell your comics, I'm telling you, I'm not doing a good job of it yet, because it's kind of next step. It's next step for me, but we have to use every means possible to try to get what we're doing out in front of people. And okay, here's a crazy idea. You believe in your comic book so much, right? Why not buy extra copies and give those out for trick-or-treaters? Unless it's like a book that's got sex in it, then don't do that. But like if you've got like an all ages book or something,
and it's a floppy, especially.
Yeah, if you got a floppy, find a cheaper version, do a self cover of that, and run off a bunch of those. I
can tell you the like alternate comics Halloween special.
Yeah.
Did that, and because my mom actually, unlike me, she lives in the community.
Yeah.
Her house became one of the favorites for like the last 2 years, because I was like, "Yo, Mom, here's a stack of alternate comics."
Now, does Pete still do the print partnership where you can jump on and gang print with him and get books? Because if he's still doing that, that's a perfect thing. Just
maybe
set your pages up for.
Maybe yeah. I'm not 100%. You would have to ask, because I know he has restructured a few things with his business. Yeah. And I know today he even on Twitter was like, "Hey, getting a bunch of pitches, but everyone's just giving me sizzle and not steak." So, he was doing a whole, this is how you need to actually pitch your comic.
Well, it might be. Yeah, I was gonna say, it might help to have it complete already too, like have some.
Yeah, it really does. Wiltbreaker saying, kind of weird. EVS said the opposing of Ripa. Ripa's always said, "Go do what you can do." I think that they've said similar things, but also they kind of oppose a little bit on that.
Yeah. And
You know,
plus, what
Ethan,
I was repeating from EBS was pretty early, like
early on,
when people were going to him hardcore for advice, because he was
He's like,
you know
yeah, just,
comic
like, start a
straight.
channel.
And
Yeah.
Him and Malin
But-
on the same thing. Just start a channel.
yeah, I was gonna say what I clashed with him a little bit because he was on Twitter telling people if you don't have at least 100,000 subscribers, you're not gonna be your stuff isn't gonna be successful. And I clashed with him on that.
Yeah,
He was,
I don't know.
cool about it. He stuck
Like,
to his
you
guns,
need
and I said agree to
1,000
disagree.
subscribers on
Then, but
YouTube or something like that is what Malin has said. It's like,
Yeah, like I don't know how many subscribers Bancroft has. I think maybe it's like 4,000, maybe more than that, maybe like 5,000. I can't remember. But he's pretty successful with that. I think it's your engagement with your audience.
and I also think that he's just hardcore thinking in his numbers.
Yeah.
And so his advice is how to get his
There.
sales numbers,
Yeah.
not how to be successful.
Yeah.
Period.
And to be quite honest, some of the people that buy Cyberfrog will like my book. Not all of them will like my book. Right?
Yeah.
That's the truth. Same way, some of the people that buy Sins of the Fae will like my book. Not all of them will like it. Right? And vice versa. That's going to happen. But that's why I don't just have hybrids. That's why I've got Rift Riders. That's why I've got all these other things that I'm trying to do, because I have other stories I want to tell, but there's other audiences that I want to reach. Okay.
Yeah.
Because for me, it's about reaching more people, creating a world and a universe that people can escape into, So if I'm trying to reach more audiences with different genre of book and different ways of telling the story, then why wouldn't I also focus on trying to find the audience in different means and methods? It's got to be, I think in 2022, in order to sell your book, you've got to be really diverse in how you do it. I think that if you're only going to sell on Indiegogo, you're going to have some trouble. We've seen a lot of creators doing this now where they do Indiegogo and Kickstarter at the same time, or congruently, or whatever they call it. But they, so they'll run both platforms. But I think, like we're running all these campaigns right now. That's why I'm running one strictly on my website, because that money goes directly into my Stripe account, like directly there. So I've gotten, as of last checked, we raised $125 today. I let it go live today. So we've raised $125 of the $500 that we need to be able to make the print run for the books. If enough interest gets it, I'm not doing extra tiers or anything like that. We're just going to upgrade everybody to hardbound instead of a paperback, if we can get enough interest in it, in the amount of time that I need. But that money goes directly in that account, and is held until the campaign funds. And once it's funded, then we can start making this happen, which is a lot different than a Kickstarter or an Indiegogo. But why can't we use all three or methods, or there's other ways to
I
raise
think
money
you
into
can use
crowdfunding.
everything, but I think the first thing is that you have to have, somebody was asking earlier, like, how do I expect to get in front of manga? I expect to get in front of manga fans by making a good story. That's how I expect to get in front of manga.
Because that's
If I
why they
make
buy
a-
manga. It certainly isn't because manga's
Well, some people don't like the art, they like hate it or whatever and it's like, okay, cool. But what people are into, and then I think what carries over, like, okay, you can have an emotional plea, or you can have, it's non-woke and everything. That's only going to get you so far. Once that's actually in front of people's hands, do they love it? Like, I know when people get my book in their hands, they're going to love it. And I know that, like, when they love it, they're going to tell other people. I've already got, there's this, I was at a club like 2-3 weeks ago, and I was standing in line, and I have on my phone, one of my screensavers is that picture with the tangled in her own thoughts. A girl behind me saw it, and she's like, what's that? I told her. She bought it on the spot. Well, the campaign was still up. She bought it right there. I pulled it up. She's like, I'll take it. And she's like, I want to put this. She's like, as soon as I get it, I'm going to put it on my Instagram. And I'm like, sure.
Yeah,
You
I
know,
mean,
and
it doesn't
Yeah.
matter like how whatever means you do use to sell a book, you have to have something good to sell. So like your primary focus should always be on let's make the best thing that we can. Once you have something that you're really proud to stick your name on and that you're finding an audience for, then you got to find a bigger audience. It's always about finding a bigger audience. Pixel Trader says that this was core to the decision to reopen IndieCron to all indie creators rather than remaining focused solely on CG. And I'm CG. I don't really mince words about that. If people ask me, I am. But if you notice, I don't really use the hashtag often because I don't want to sell the book, like Buddy said, based on my politics. I don't want someone just to buy it because it's anti-woke or it's a libertarian making a comic book, or it's a Christian making a comic book. So I never mentioned that I'm a Christian. I never mentioned that I'm CG or that I'm libertarian, to sell the book. I talk about the story of the book. I try to pitch it, and that's what I try to sell the book on.
Yeah, I
is
want
the book.
I want my stories to sell on merit, not on where my alliance is or whatever.
Right. Yeah.
And you're selling yourself short. And that's the same for when I promote. Like if an indie creator is like, hey, can you help me out? Either hey, can I hire you as an editor? Or hey, can you maybe retweet this or whatever? I don't go, well, let me check and make sure you're CG. I just
Right.
go, heck yeah, you're an indie. I'm an indie. Let's go. Like
Yeah. I don't even like to call myself indie because of the connotations. So I am independent. I work for myself, but I am a comic book creator. That's what I do. I create comic books, and we can mince, and argue over, the numbers and sales of some of the lower selling books now versus back then, and whether some indie books are actually hitting that or whatever. But if you have to put a qualifier in front of whatever you are, so let's say, it's like I'm a, obviously, we say indie because that's the market we're in. But if you have to say I'm a blank creator, and fill in like the qualifier, let's say I'm a CG creator, I'm a Christian creator, then you're trying to sell yourself based on that fill in the blank right there.
yeah.
And that is your selling point. No, I'm a creator. I am a writer and an artist, and I tell really good stories about things that are really cool to read about. And yeah, we stick it under superheroes, but man, this is about family and about excitement and about crazy stuff, and you're going to love it. And you're probably going to hate me because I kill people that you love.
Well, I mean, I think, like Jim Cox is like, exceptional art and story are great, but will only get you so far without marketing. And
True.
yeah, I mean, obviously that's true. But I mean, the first thing is to make a great product. And you make a product that's so great that it's like a virus or a seed, that when somebody is infected with it or they plant it within themselves, that it grows and they begin to become a satellite and they market your product for you. And that's the biggest difference. If it's not good, that doesn't happen. And that is some of what's, and when you're like, okay, well, what happens if it's not good and it's still selling? Well, then you've just got a pyramid scheme.
Yeah. Well, let me pop back up here. So you said that your plan to get in front of the manga audience is to just make a good story.
No, it's not just to do that. I mean, it's
Okay.
to make a good story, and then it's to appeal to their sensibilities, because that is what anyone should do if you're trying to get in front of a particular audience. I mean, the thing is that with Sins, the way that I created it, it can be anything. Sins has mecha, kaiju, ancient gods, every mythology or a pantheon, because it's literally like, the way that it's created is they're these different gods, because I've taken the idea of thought form, but it's thought form mixed with quantum suicide, mixed with two primordial beings that didn't agree. There's all different kinds of things. So it's like anything you're into. If you want to get deep into the lore, you can. If
But
you just
even
want to
still
see the
that,
pretty
you still have
pictures,
to get
you
it
can.
out in front of people.
Yeah, but you do
that's the
that by
thing.
actually going out and doing it. The best way to do that is to sell the book. Like if I go to conventions and I sell 200, 300, 400, 1,000 copies at a convention, that's 1,000 people that are going to read it. If they love it, they're all going to go on there.
If you sell 1,000 copies at one convention, I'll eat this statue of Trash Man. Because I don't know anybody sold 1,000 copies of a book at a convention. But
my
anyway,
goal is to sell 10,000 copies next year.
Okay. Well, I hope you do. I really do. I hope you do. I hope everybody sells 10,000
Same.
copies next year.
Yeah.
That's what I want.
Hell
I want
yeah.
everybody. I want comics to be super successful. The reason why I think manga is so successful is because it's available everywhere. That's the thing.
But how
It's-
does it get
is
available everywhere?
Because
you can say that
the culture
now.
is not niche.
But how
because
does
it's not niche there.
expand? Okay,
it's
that's
not
one
niche
thing.
there. That,
But if
I'm
it was
answering your
crap,
question.
It was crap and it wasn't open. Like
But
there's a million different genres. It is open
I'm-
everywhere. You can find it anywhere there.
Yeah.
And one of the biggest things is because they travel so much and they don't have a lot of cars, it's available in the transit systems, in the transit authority system. So they have them. They'll give them to you when you're in the train, and stuff like that. Or not give them, buy them. But
Yes, which
you can
was
buy them.
what I said. They're everywhere. So of course they're selling a lot of copies because it's actually looked at as part of as the culture's entertainment. It's like watching TV, or here it's YouTube. Of course, everyone here watches YouTube, which is why so many creators try to sell on YouTube, because they're trying to get out in front of where people are. Because we did the opposite. Rather than put comics everywhere, we took comics from everywhere and put them in specialty stores. So we've got to try to get that around. Conventions do a good job of getting us in front of new people, but that's also, I went to a convention, I didn't sell anything at one convention because they were there for anime, and they were there to get an autograph of some really famous person that was there. They were not there to look at anyone on Artist Alley. They didn't care about Artist Alley. But the smaller conventions that I would go to, where it's just toys and there's like maybe 2 or 3 creators, those people were there to buy things with their family on a Sunday afternoon. And I cleaned up, sold out of all of my stock. We're talking hundreds of books, where normally I sell 50s of books, nothing big. But yeah, it's, and I think that's what we're all talking about, is how do we get out in front of those people and do that?
Gentleman, lady, tiny adorable dinosaur man. I must wake up in like 5 hours, so I'm gonna try to sleep within these 5 hours.
He shows up late and leaves early. Oh my gosh.
Yes.
We're getting ready to wrap up here. We're gonna finish through these.
So
these comments.
everyone else out there, no matter what you do to live, thrive, and survive, some things that make us all the same. You, me, them, everybody. Look at that little cat. That little cat wants to say what's up. So he even wants to say goodbye to me. Well, night, everyone.
Good night, bud.
Night,
Have a
Justin.
good one. Everybody, check out Justin over on Twitter.
Be a lot better next week.
All right. Yeah. Hopefully we'll see you on time, man. It'd be nice.
Yeah.
Trying to get the band back together.
I just have a petting zoo in this apartment.
Apparently, yeah.
So,
But I think the issue is that people look at like comic books and they say, "Oh, I can only sell comic books to comic book fans." And the thing is like, no, you need to look at a wider thing. Like a comic book is a story, and anyone who likes a story will like a comic book if it is well done and it's interesting to them. Now I do think that
100% agree with you there. That's why Rip is doing so good, because he's selling comic books to people that aren't comic book fans. They want to hear a story. They want to read a story.
Yeah,
he's convinced a lot of people to give him a lot of money for his story.
I mean, he's made, I don't know, 3.5 million or something. I mean, at this point, he's probably going to make like 7 or 8 million.
Yeah, insane amount of money. Pixel Trader says, I knew that quality books and CG could stand toe to toe with non-CG side by side, and normies would love them without needing to know anything about affiliations. And I agree, affiliations don't make sense a lot of times. I can't stop watching the Swishy Tail. It is quite.
I had to stifle a giggle fit earlier because he was making silly faces with his dinosaur. I was just...
Eric Hawkins makes a great point. He says the majority of people thought that comics went away when they no longer saw them in supermarkets, gas stations, drugstores. You know what? They did, because specialty stores was not something that they thought to go to. And not only did the specialty stores become so specialty and so niche, they became almost unapproachable, because you did get those, well, actually, guys, the gatekeeper guys, the jerks. Not
Worst
everybody.
episode ever.
Yeah. So if I ask you who your favorite comic book character is, it's not to try to gatekeep you. It's so that I can get to know you, because like everyone should have a favorite dinosaur. That's one thing they don't ask you when you get older. Is who's your favorite dinosaur? Velociraptor. Yeah, Velociraptor.
Well, you've been very happy today then.
Yeah.
Yeah. I've been having fun.
It's like, like when someone gets a new pair of shoes, like, does it make you run faster? We always used to ask our friends, do they make you run faster? We don't ask that anymore. Oh, nice shoes. Are they
Way
comfortable?
faster than
Who
my
cares
old
if they're
pair.
comfortable? Do they make you run faster? We got to get back to this stuff. But yeah, Eric's absolutely right. We agree on this one. We got to get comic books in other places, as well as the specialty stores.
I think they're I don't think it would help. I think they're too expensive as they are right now. Because if you have
crowdfunded books are, yeah.
If you have I think $5 is too much.
Even I was gonna say even floppies are kind of like,
because you can go on a phone that everybody has now, and for $5 get 10 different apps that'll keep them entertained for a month, or you can buy a comic book that's gonna last 5 minutes.
I think that's where Peter Samedi has a good idea with keeping his price point low. The problem is he doesn't have the spinner racks to put them on. So I think that his price point would do great on a spinner rack deal in other places, which by the way, Peter Samedi's got books that are going to go in this test run of spinner racks. So
heck yeah.
I'm guessing that Alterna is going to sell out of books when our Arrow books are not going to sell as well, because our Arrow books are $4.99, and Alterna books are like what, $1.50?
Yeah. A lot of that is going back to newsprint to print on.
Yeah.
And that's, I think, is cool because paper quality is what drives up prices, is a bit of what drives up prices. But then you also get like that classic feel, that nostalgic feel and smell of it being.
Yeah, he had a whole commercial that was like a bunch of people like just smelling the comic book.
Right.
I didn't even know that. Yeah.
I do that every time I pick up a book. That's what I do. First thing I do is I smell it. I'm like,
that's some fresh book right there.
Now, I like the smell of these books. Some books, like I think they get them from Mix'em or something. The Mix'em books stink to high heaven. I can't stand those. But, a lot of books smell good. But, that's why, I'm looking at a book like Rift Riders. And I'm like, okay, well, let's do the colors in such a way where they're nice and vibrant on the computer screen and on nice paper. But they will also work well on newsprint, because ultimately we want to take whatever money we raise for this book and newsprint these things so we can lower the price point and have a low, like kind of an entry level cost for young readers to get this book, because that's who we're going for. We're going for brand new readers. We want to get,
especially when you're super young, you might not take the best care of your comics. So to have one that's like, this is cool, the paper's shiny and whatever, that's great. But like, and they spill soda on it or whatever, it's not that big of an ouch when it's a lower price newsprint comic. You'd be like, well, I read it.
And Blue Teddy Nations, welcome. Narrations, welcome. He says that they say that the comic books keep getting thrown with the coloring books at their Walmart, and of course they're not going to sell. Of course, going to have to close that deal down because that's not going to work. Comic books in a grocery store belong at the checkouts. It's got to be an impulse buy.
Somebody said that getting a spot in the impulse buy section, there was a pixel.
Are highly contested and pricey. To get
it's
your
probably like the whole Super Bowl ad kind of deal.
Well,
like,
I mean, Archie Comics has been there.
That's true.
With the tabloids for years.
Yeah,
they've stayed there, and my father-in-law still to this day buys Archie Comics.
That would be the spot to put them, is with those.
Yeah, right there.
Well, that is where like the DC and the Marvel that sell it at Walmart. That's where they are.
That's where
the thing is they were never going to be able to afford like a huge deal. What they got was pretty interesting. I mean, they had their own display, and it was supposed to be on the end caps, which is as people walk by, they see it. That's a The problem is nobody's looking for it, And nobody really looks at end caps anymore. Most of the time, people, when they go into a store nowadays, they've got the entire floor layout if they want it. They go directly to the place they want. Like most
That's on
people,
their phone.
you know, they don't do like a brick and mortar. Obviously, is not the way, you know, what it used to be anyway.
Yeah.
And the people that do go, they're not looking around. They're looking
Yeah,
at
so-
exactly what they want and get out.
You know, Marsupial makes great points. Is that all sounds great, but we have to deal with the reality, and Walmart is not going to do something because we've talked about it here. We have to deal with what we have here. And what we do have here is that everyone is on their phones. And so we have to find a way to get our story to their phones or to where their eyes are looking. And that's why I think, you know, a smoke shop or some of these smaller specialty stores where it's foot traffic for something else and you're going to introduce people to comic books. I'll tell you what, I never did it, but a lot of my friends used to smoke weed and read comics, you know? So I'm just saying, it's not a bad place to sell a book. It's not a bad place to get into at all. And Sarah says, have a great night. Been a long day. Have a great night. Great to have you here. Let's get through these so that we can close this out and have a good night. Cause I'm getting tired. Been a long day here too. And I have a neurologist appointment tomorrow to see if I can fix my arm. Maybe I'll get my arm back. It'd be nice, wouldn't it? Get my arm back. I got to get focused on making you guys look good. Need to make some Indicron updates. Have a nice evening, folks. Nice evening to you. Gideon's Comics. I'm not sure what that reference is, but guys, look that up. Gideon's Comics. And then I think fantasy style is good in comic form. I think every style could be good in comic form. Fantasy, I don't think anything.
You can
if you do it right,
a lot in comic form, and it's cool.
Yeah, and if you put your heart into it, you know, it's good. My main story is more fantasy Avatar. Let's move on here. Bancroft has 3,440 subs, but 187 members, and that's where it comes in. Membership is a big deal because that's engaged people. So you can have a ton of subs and not a lot of members, or you can have fewer subs and more members. And so he's been able to cultivate that kind of an audience where they are invested in him and his channel. You know, I'll grow in subs probably because of the things that the marketing person is doing and teaching me to do. But it's my job to try to engage with the audience to get channel membership, which, by the way, we've got about 5 or 6 channel members. And if you're watching right now on YouTube, you can also become a channel member. You can become part of the Bacon Nation and you get special content early before everybody else. And you get some cool emojis that you can share. So, little plug, become a channel member if you haven't already. At least subscribe and share, please. Exceptional art and story are great, but will only get you so far without marketing. That's true. We already talked about that.
People do need to know it exists.
Yeah, you've got to figure out how to sell it. Once you've got a great product, you got to figure out how to get it into people's hands. I hate to say it, but Bad Stuff is most of the best sellers list when you look at the novels. Bad movies make crazy money all the time. If it's true in those mediums, why wouldn't it be true in comics as well? Yeah, because a lot of times that bad stuff is cranked out, and it's not very good. But it's marketed to. It's like it's clickbait for movies.
It's cranked out by places and people that were originally known for good stuff.
Yeah.
And then they already had like a reputation of years of actually trying before they realized that they don't have to do any of that. They can just fart out whatever and say, hey, this has the first woman ever to ever. And boom, money rolls in. Like,
right. Yeah.
I mean, I think one of the big, again, like everybody, you know, we're learning the wrong lessons. Like when people say manga and you want to say like, yeah, okay, it is available and all that stuff. But one thing is, I think genre, there's a genre for everything. And they have lost leader genres, you know, even the genres that don't do particularly well, it's still available at the big manga shops. Same thing with Bond Destiny. They do the same thing. Even the ones that aren't super, you know, they don't sell crazy because it's, you know, it's more niche, it's still there. So then you get those people, right? And those people may buy other books as well. And so there is that. The other thing that I think that you don't learn is, again, story. Like, you know what? Hey, Demon Slayer. Demon Slayer it honestly wasn't that like pushed at the beginning. It was just good. It was so freaking good and emotional that invested people, and they talked to their friends, and their friends talked to their friends, and everything, and it grew from there.
Yeah.
You know, and like, what did that sell? I mean, you're talking about, somebody was saying like, the best American comic sold, I don't know what, like 300,000. Demon Slayer sold 120 million.
Yeah.
So
here's what I'll say. I don't think we're learning the wrong lesson. I think we're not learning the whole lesson. I think we're learning bits and pieces, but I think there's other aspects that we need to consider. We do need to know how to market. We need to get comics everywhere. But not only do we need to get the comics everywhere, we need to get all kinds of comics everywhere. And that is the problem a lot with a lot of these publishers. It's very, very limited. A lot of these publishers are like, well, I don't read that kind of comic, so I don't want to publish it. Well, just because you don't read it doesn't mean somebody else doesn't.
Yeah.
Well,
I mean, that's selling themselves short, because they're like, well, that's still money, an audience that you could have.
Yeah, I mean, well, there used to be like
not
little
for you, it's for them.
little girly romance comics that were available anywhere. One of there's this girl Teresa Says or something on Twitter that used to talk about that, and she's like, they're not available anymore. They stopped being available in the 80s. She's like, but that's what got me and my friends into comics.
Yeah. So I was talking to my wife actually, and I've got this new story idea, the one that I want to do anthropomorphic, and I thought I kind of want to do it a Western. And she's like, a Western? They don't make Western comics. I said, no, actually, all the comics used to be Westerns and romances. Like that was what they made. And then they had some barbarian fantasy stuff, but that wasn't real big. It started to gain ground. I said, but superheroes was like a little small niche, and it wasn't real big, but it boomed later, and we can get into the story of how that boomed. And actually the person to have on that would be Randy Zim. He could tell you the whole reason why that happened. But
I mean, it's just an escalation of heroism. It's like, what was a hero 50 years ago? That's what is being presented in major media now.
Yeah. So Marsupio says a CG app, perhaps, maybe, but we do have the website cgnow.com. Go check that out.
I think
CG Now app.
My personal way I personally look at it is CG needs to go away.
I think it's okay to stop I think it would be okay to drop the CG title now.
I think
we're at I think you don't need to label your stuff CG. You personally are CG. You believe what CGers believe. Creators and fans can discuss things together through the hashtag. But when it comes to putting out your comics, I don't think you need to label them.
And here's I'll be honest with you. I think there are less talented people out there that, you're aligned with CG. They kind of push you into that market. Not necessarily pushing the market. They try to exclude you from their market because it's less competition. I'll be honest with you. And I was talking about this today. I said, here's the problem. I said, I know this guy that is in comics, and he's doing pretty good for himself right now. But the truth is, in order to get there, he pushes people down. He pushes people down, and he tries to put people down and put people in their place so that he can elevate himself because he can't stand on the merit of his own talent because he doesn't have any.
Yeah, I know a couple.
That's just the problem. He doesn't have any. He uses tricks and gimmicks. He uses stunts instead of story. That's what this guy is all about. That's what he's all about. And he's making money doing it. But that's not sustainable. That's not what I want to be. So I think a lot of times that's what happens. And that's why people gravitate around the CG title because it's kind of been thrust upon them. But, everyone's like, oh, well, Luke, he's a CG artist. He's a CG creator. Yeah. But my books, my book appeals. I planted the flag because my book appealed to Comicsgate. And I wanted to piss somebody off. So I planted the flag. Guess what? I'm CG, but I really wanted to help that movement look better. I wanted to help it. I knew there were a lot of great people in it, and I wanted to help that movement and help other people see that the people that worked inside of that were not all these nasty war campaign people that they've been hearing about, or
They're not
these people
even
that are always
all
fighting.
Republican or right leaning. They're not
They're
even
not.
all
In fact, most of them are not.
I think you should
Yeah.
lose the comics game and just say you're a cool guy or gal. It's cool
Right,
guy
yeah.
or gal
I like
comics.
that.
Okay?
Yeah, cool guy or gal. Yeah.
Cool gal.
I like that a lot better. And
Yeah.
I'm with you. Like I said, I don't use the hashtag to sell my book. I sell my book based on the book. Now, my audience is Comicsgate because I align with those people. And I'm like, look, this book is safe for you. It's not going to have anything political in there. I'm not, there's nothing in this book is for agenda. It is for story and story only. If
When I'm
someone in this
listening
book
to
is,
what people want in a book, that's where I'm pulling from. Is
Exactly.
My feed it's mostly Comicsgate, either creators or fans. That's where I'm pulling my overall comic opinions from and getting feedback from, because they care about the books. They want a book that they want.
yeah,
So
when I'm
if
telling
I
a
want
story,
to tell them my story, I need to tell it in a way that isn't going to
want
bore
it.
the shit out of them.
Yeah. My number one rule is like anything you do in a comic, make it interesting. If somebody has to open up an email, do it interestingly. It's like you got to find an interesting way to do anything you got to do in the comic to tell a story. But I tell people, look, if someone in the story is gay, it's not because I feel like I need a gay person in the story. It's because it matters to the story.
Well, I mean, I have a character that's pansexual, and the reason why she's pansexual is because she's a shape changer. And she can literally,
That
like,
makes total
at one
sense.
point, she can change any part of her body independently. So she could change just her, genitalia, or just her arms, or she can change like her the length of her nasal gland so that she can smell. Like she can change it into like that of a bear, so she can smell 2 days away. That kind of thing.
Nice.
And so her being and she's traveled with wolf packs and stuff. Even at her age, she's traveled with wolf packs. She's been exposed to wolf sniffing her butt and doing whatever and frolicking and playing. So she's like, sex and murder and everything doesn't mean the same thing to her. And it's not because I'm writing to an agenda. Just for me, when I thought about it thematically, I'm like, this fits.
It makes sense for the character, and that's what those things should be. I do believe representation is important, but don't force it. Like if it's in the story, it should be.
You don't have to beat the reader in the head with whether like what this character likes to do, like who they like to. You don't need every page. By the way, I'm gay, still gay.
Right, yeah.
Like you don't need that every page.
Look,
I
here's
would
the
walk
deal.
away so fast from someone who did that in real life. If I went to the bar and the first thing you did was, I'm a cishet, Democratic, blah, 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 I'd be like, so here's
I don't
the
have to
check.
wake up in the morning and
Bye.
tell people, look, I'm still white and male. Like,
Exactly.
they can tell, and it doesn't matter. I don't care. Here's the thing. They always say, a vegan atheist walks into a bar. How do you know? Because they told everybody in the first 5 minutes. It's like, come on, like let's get real.
You don't want your characters doing that.
I'm vegan and atheist, so I cannot drink the wine, nor can I partake in this other spirits. Okay, why are you here?
Yeah, just go away. Just go wherever.
I just came here to tell y'all.
I don't. Yeah.
Like, dude, I just came here to drink a beer and listen to the jazz band. Okay, cool.
It's like I tell, I do not sit around my house thinking about how I'm going to make life for you difficult. Okay, like that's not how I do not think about. Honestly, I got so many of my own problems. I don't think about other people's problems.
Well, in psychology,
I
they
have
they have something called the 20-40-60 rule, which is at 20, most people, they look around and they're like very worried about what everybody's thinking about them. At 40, they no longer care what everybody's thinking about them. And at 60, they realize nobody was ever thinking about them.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah. I like that. That is, that's good stuff. That should, we should clip. I think I'm going to clip that and we'll just make a short of that for the channel.
Because dinosaur saying that.
Dinosaur wisdom. Yeah, we'll say,
Velociraptor.
He's been around a long time.
I have.
He's been around a long time. So Blue Teddy Narrations, the first woman ever to ever, might steal that when I'm marking my stuff. Please don't steal.
Well, now I'm going to use it when I'm marking my stuff. I am the first woman ever. I'm just going to say the first woman ever to even.
Ever to even. All right. It's like, why are you?
I'm the first woman ever to even, and I can't even right now, so you have no idea.
So
Yeah,
I'm not saying something.
They told me if I showed my cleavage on camera that I could sell more books, and I actually lost backers when I did that. So I mean, it backfired on me.
It
What I gotta
backfired.
say-
Since you had the Batman shirt there, it backfired.
It
is,
backfired on me.
like, people will probably hate me for this, but Common America, I think that's Tim Lim. Freaking Japan loves it.
Yes, they do.
I'm on a completely different account, but randomly because of the VTubing stuff, there's tons of Japanese tweets, right? I see her tons from random Japanese fans just in my feed gushing, and I'm like, all right, look, people hate him. I don't know, like he was a dick to me too. But whatever the hell he's doing to get overseas, we need to figure that out. And probably
Yeah,
do
let's
that.
figure out how he got shipped over there.
Yeah,
Because
right?
shipping there
Well,
is
I mean,
difficult.
he paid for a professional cosplayer. That was one thing. He created an animation that was, I mean, it's like probably that animation that they created 18 seconds was probably about 10 or 20 grand. I mean, it was
Wow.
I was
very,
gonna say, yeah, it
very
took a
good.
huge investment.
It was very good. And then not only that, they hired a professional studio over there, one of the top professional studios. They're making a manga. And that's being known
Wow.
because that studio is promoting it over there. So they have that, but they also have, they built, because they go out to conventions. See, they've been doing conventions for like 4 or 5 years.
Yeah.
And they go all the time. And even if I talked to Doug, I talked to Mark, I talked to, Matt, I talked to them all the time. I actually had a chance to go with Iconic a long time ago, and I did not, and I do regret that, but we're not going to go into that. So anyway, but I know that what their business plan was, and their business plan was, we're going to go out in front of people. We're going to show people that we've got a great product. And when nobody knew their product, what Tim did is he's a good artist. He created like chibi figures and standees of popular anime at the time. Like when Goblin Slayer was popular, he had Goblin Slayer like standees, and they would sell them like crazy. And he used that to sell Common America, to get people. He would sell stickers and those. And he always told me, he said, well, if you keep it under 20,000, those people don't care.
Yeah.
They don't even look at it. He's like, if you keep it under 20,000 in sales, he even offered it like in the beginning. He offered those in some of his like crowdfunded books, because again, he said, if you don't make 20,000, or if you make, I think it was under 100 there, they don't care. He's like, but now obviously he doesn't have to do that because Common stands on its own. But that's the way they did it, is that they got in front of those people, and by doing that, what, like you're saying, how did they get the manga audience? Because they cultivated them the entire time.
Yeah. As an artist in Artist Alley, fan art is a part of of what we have to do, but we use the fan art to get eyes on our art, on
Exactly.
what we want to sell. So my book's there, but yeah, I may snag you with a print or a or a commission of your favorite character, but I'm going to sell you my book while I'm at it if I can. And so yeah, I mean whatever it takes. And I mean, no shame in his game. He's making money. They're making money. I may not be the biggest fan of their IPs, but they're selling more than I am. So,
I will say
I can
that
learn something
Mark-
from them.
Yeah.
Mark's a really good writer. Pellegrini, he's a really, really good writer. And they've made that story again. Like I think this is one of the things that comic books, especially the comic books that they have today, lack, is emotional depth. Like there's so many, like we just have this sort of periphery, there's this like peripheral understanding of emotions and getting into it. And we're kind of afraid, like you were saying, we're afraid to say, why don't, can you run faster, or do like, right. We're afraid to get into these sort of like conflicted questions and these other like, bande dessinée and manga, they lean into that. They lean into their characters having emotions, being weak, being, failing and being destroyed and having to build themselves back up. Whereas
And also
we're like,
being overpowered.
yeah. Well, I mean, but that is, how do you
But
get
There's
to
being
always
overpowered?
somebody else to come along and
Yeah.
and humble them. There we go.
Unless you're One Punch Man, and then you get
Well, yeah.
you're humbled at the beginning, and then the whole point is that you're bored.
Yeah. You're OP and you're bored. I like that though. It was a different take.
Yeah.
It was
Yeah.
like, well, here's
I
the
like
other
it.
side of the
Saitama,
yeah.
He's like, I'm going to throw a planet at you. He's like, I'm going to hit you with 2 punches.
I'm glad Lug Nuts enjoyed the stream tonight. That's what we aim to entertain. And Marsupial says I didn't do it right, so I'll try better later, I guess. And
This is what
that's my pup.
happens. You
That's my dog.
freaking climb all over my desk and not.
Blue Teddy says that buttons. They always got me with the buttons.
Now you're getting
Yeah,
snuggled.
so-
I think
Yeah.
one of the best ways that people can sell is that, there's a lot like a rite of passage within our community is to get a chibi from Mark, right? From 6
Yeah,
a.m.
Right,
yeah.
And I think
Yeah,
that one
now
of
it's you ain't legit until you have at least one.
Dude,
Right.
I
have.
The thing is, I got all my chibis from my friend Joe Spicer.
I think it's the same. That's fine though. You still, I have 8. I think by Mark, I'm gonna get a 9th. I'm sad. I know, but you've got
You've
what
got
I-
his distinct style. Then you can get chibis in other styles too.
Yeah,
Chibis
and,
are
and
just
what I was
cute.
told by like what Neff was saying, that they got a lot of marketing when they would go to conventions because of the stickers. They would pack them together, they'd sell them really cheap, and people just love the stickers, at first, and they didn't know about them, but they're like, oh, that sticker looks cool, so they buy like a pack of stickers.
Mhm.
And then he's like, well, I didn't make a lot of money, but everybody knows who we are.
And that's really what it's about, is getting that book out there. Getting the IP in front of people. That's why I do the crazy things like the statues and things like that, because I want IPs out there. We do shirts and things like that, so that it's part of your everyday. That's why one of the things I want to develop was an RPG, and that's where we get the RPG, because we want you to be able to play in the sandbox that we've created. Yeah, so there's a lot of reasons behind that, but we've been going at this for 2 hours and 40 minutes. It is almost 1 o'clock. I have an early morning tomorrow, as many of us do. It's been a great conversation, buddy. I really thank you for being here tonight and sharing. Definitely check out Buddy Lord on Twitter and any of those other places. I'm going to throw a little bit of Miracle Grow on your screen when I do. Feel free to tell everyone where they can find you and any last parting words before we head out for the evening. Okay. And Buddy, you're up first.
You can find me on Twitter at Buddy Lord with 2 Ds, as it is presented here. I also have a website. There will be things for sale there, like the book when it's finished, at bladenite.com. That's bladenite.com. So come visit, say hi, and have a great night.
Oh, shoot. I have a website too, adventuresofpiper.net, and if I ever finally get the time to update it, it'll be kind of like a link tree, so you'll find all of my other stuff, including some of the VTuber stuff. I have a YouTube Adventures of Piper that I'm supposed to be doing all this cool stuff with, but I don't know when I'm supposed to do that. And Twitter, Piper's Adventure, but I have the VTuber stuff, which I keep an eye out on because I want to do her book. So that's Fizz Giggity, and that's Fizz Giggity everywhere. If you put Fizz Giggity into a place, if there's an account, you'll find it. It's with a Y. Fizz with a Y
Giggity.
and Giggity.
Giggity. I love that.
All together.
Yeah, I'm Luke Stone. You can find me at lukestonestudios.com. lukestonestudios.com. Go over there. My social links are over there. It's like a link tree, but it's my website. There's also links to all the crowdfunding. Please go check out the Hybrids, the Sons of God's Trash Day Volume 1, remastered trade paperback, re-released with Arrow Comics. It's got some great work in there, and it is a lot of Piper.
Thank you, Whitechapel.
It is Piper editing and some Piper writing in a couple places. So that was
good. A lot of fun.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun. I'm finishing up the last of the lettering now for issues 4 and 5, and then getting that copy edit done. And then we'll also be releasing those floppies on the website at some point. So, but we're trying to doing the pre-order right now for that trade paperback. Also, check out the Rift Riders sign up. We're going to be going live with that soon. and we are going to have a couple of fun things for you for that. But it's going to be it's the Lost Boys meets Doctor Who. I mean, it's a fun little adventure, and I want everyone to get this. I think it's going to be a huge IP. I think people are going to get real excited about it. It is. Piper and I kind of trade roles on it. I do a little editing, not much, but it's everyone gets to see Piper's writing chops, and we've got the great Dillard draws on there as well. So yeah, he's the artist, and then we've got Edgar.
And the style apparently is surprising people that it's Dillard. So I think that's kind of neat.
yeah, it's really cool. It's a little out of the box for what you would normally see from indie book, and we're pretty excited about it, and we think you'll like it. So head on over there. You can find that link also at lukestonestudios.com. Again, lukestonestudios.com. Please like and subscribe. Share it out. Let your friends know about this channel. If you've liked what you saw tonight, let people know. Word of mouth is everything. And if you want, think about becoming a channel member. You will get access to new videos. I'm filming new videos tomorrow that are going to be going up. And we're getting ready to have a bunch of unboxing videos from all of the books that I got while I was asleep. So we're, so I'm going to be opening up one at a time, but I'm going to film them, and then we're going to pop them up on the YouTube so you guys can see the books coming in and kind of see what's cool and what's out there. And I'll let you know where you can buy the books. So a lot of the books are still available for you to purchase. Some of them, I'll just rub it in your nose that I got it and you don't. So that is. So with that, try to remember to build up more than you tear down. Leave the wood pile a little bit higher than you found it. And by all means, please just be careful.
Yeah.
Let's be careful out there. Let's be careful out there. We had a 187 at the 7-Eleven on the corner of 4th and Main. Two Caucasians of the male persuasion put a bullet through the cashier's brain. Moving on, I see it 211, half a dozen 459, 2 W's a GTA, several miscellaneous crimes.